Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock. We're kicking off a 4-hour extravaganza we call The Drive. We'll bring you news and information while we drive you home, and hopefully, along the way, we'll drive home a few salient points and then drive the liberals crazy. Each of those things on our to-do list today as we kick off a day that has a lot of news in it. This is a day to sit back because over the course of 4 hours, I'm going to be covering a lot of ground so that you're up to speed on things going on. And the news really, it's so big in many different ways. Let me just tell you a few of the things we're going to be covering here. There is a Supreme Court hearing today, and conservative justices were pretty adamant about questioning in a rather severe way the DOJ, the way the DOJ applied the law in the January 6th cases. Now, at stake here is if a ruling goes a certain way, a great number of January 6 defendants will be released from jail. We'll get into that in a little while. Then Speaker Johnson is in trouble. Another member of the Republican Party in the House has said that he should step down, he should resign, and will be a co-sponsor on this motion to vacate that was put forward recently by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Closer to home, there is a hearing today about whether or not the writings of the Covenant shooter should be made public. We'll get into that as well. Senator Marsha Blackburn will join us at 5:30, so that's good. But I'm going to lead with the impeachment story, and this is really remarkable. Today, with pomp and ceremony, as often comes with these kinds of events, the House sent over articles of impeachment to the Senate. And it was they marched across from the House through Statuary Hall, the old House chambers, and through the rotunda and into the Senate, where Mark Green from Tennessee's 7th Congressional District, he's the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and the person who would be arguing the articles of impeachment on the Senate floor, one of them for sure, was there to make the announcement to the Senate and present the articles of impeachment. It went a little like this.
Throughout his tenure as Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro N. Mayorkas has repeatedly violated laws enacted by Congress regarding immigration and border security.
And then he concluded this way.
Resolved that Alejandro Nicholas Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security of the United States of America, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors.
He's been impeached by the House. Will there be a trial in the Senate is the big question, and I would answer, not if Chuck Schumer has his way. He's already said he thinks that this is the wrong way to go about what he considers to be a policy disagreement, and he thinks it sets a dangerous precedent. But Republicans are mad as old wet hens, and they are vowing to do whatever they can to force a trial in the United States Senate. Now, I'm going to play for you a very long cut, but a very good cut from Senator Ted Cruz. He's a Republican senator, one of the many who thinks that there should be a trial, and he's angry at the prospect of there not being a trial and this being swept under the rug. Here is about 5 minutes of Ted Cruz, but hold on to your hat stuff. It's good stuff here.
We've just witnessed history being made. Only 22 times in our nation's history has the House of Representatives presented and delivered articles of impeachment to the Senate. Only twice in our nation's history has a cabinet member been impeached by the House. The stakes of this impeachment are not some technical violation of law, but rather an enormous and growing threat to the lives and safety of millions of Americans. Every year, under Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas, we have seen millions of illegal aliens crossing into this country. Alejandro Mayorkas actively aided and abetting the criminal invasion of this country by criminal drug cartels and illegal aliens. And the consequences have been day after day after day, migrants dying. 853 in the last year. The consequences have been day after day after day, little boys and little girls being brutalized by human traffickers. The consequences have been day after day after day. Hundreds and even thousands of women being sexually assaulted by human traffickers. The consequences, which the House managers read out loud in the articles of impeachment, have been enriching the Mexican drug cartels to a level never before seen in history. In 2018, the drug cartels made roughly $500 million from human trafficking. In 2022, they made $13 billion. The single greatest friend the human traffickers have ever had has been Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas. Because under their open border policies, the drug cartels have seen their revenues rise 2,600%. Every week, we see another horrific crime committed by criminal illegal aliens that Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas continue to release. Laken Riley, beautiful 22-year-old woman in Georgia, a nursing student, just out for a jog. Like so many other women are out for a jog today, believing they live in a country where their safety will be protected, and it should have been. But Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas deliberately defied the law. They apprehended her killer when he came illegally into this country. He was in El Paso. Had Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas simply followed the law, they would have put him on a plane and flown him back to Venezuela, and Laken Riley would still be alive. But they didn't. They defied the law. They let him go. And he went to New York City, another sanctuary city, where he was apprehended again, this time for endangering the safety of a child. If New York City had simply followed the law, if they'd put him in jail, Laken Riley would still be alive. But again, New York City let him go, and this murderer came down to Georgia and beat Laken Riley to death with a brick. Jeremy Caceres, a 2-year-old little boy in Prince George's County, Maryland, just miles from where we are right now, murdered by an illegal alien Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas released. And just a couple of weeks ago, we saw another tragic case. We've discovered that Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden aren't simply allowing millions of illegal aliens in at our southern border. They're actually flying them in from their home countries. Over 320,000 last year, including one individual they flew from Haiti to Boston, Massachusetts. When he got here in Boston, Massachusetts, what did he do? Well, he was just arrested for violently raping a 15-year-old girl who's severely disabled. The consequences of this open border invasion are enormous. And interestingly enough, what you just saw is apparently terrifying. The men and women, the House managers who are here, and thank you for your service coming here, scare the living daylights out of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. Tomorrow we're going to see Chuck Schumer throw out 200 years of history, ignore the Constitution. Why? Because he does not want these managers to present the evidence of the people dying because of their policies, not just that have died yesterday and the day before, but the people that will die tomorrow.
That's right. Chuck Schumer is going to throw this thing out tomorrow if he has his way. But the Republicans are going to do everything they can to get it heard, first of all. But if they can't get it heard, make Democrats squirm for allowing this kind of policy to be going forward. If this is not an impeachable offense, then tell me what the hell on earth is an impeachable offense? My God. A very powerful statement there by Ted Cruz, and not often that I let something run that long, but I wanted you to hear it all. Meanwhile, Mayorkas was actually testifying in the House of Representatives and had a pretty good go-round with the Representative Dan Bishop.
Do you consider your administration of the Department of Homeland Security to be a success?
With the resources and authorities they have, they've done an extraordinary job.
In November 2022, I asked you whether you continue to maintain that the border is secure. You said yes, and it's getting more secure every day. Do you still say so?
Congressman, with the resources and the authorities that we have been provided, it is as secure as we can make it.
Under your orders, the Department of Homeland Security paroled Venezuelan Jose Ibarra into the United States. He, of course, went on to a variety of crimes, culminating in beating a young woman to death in Georgia. The relevant statute grants you authority to parole aliens into the United States, quote, only on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit, close quote. Which was it in Mr. Ibarra's case, humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit that you paroled him into the United States?
Congressman, we abide by the law. We apply our parole processes in obeyance of the law. The public safety of the American people is our highest priority, and I would be pleased to share case details with you on any case of concern to you subsequent to this hearing. I don't have the case details with me today.
Don't know. You don't know.
As I said, I do not have the details with respect to that individual's case, and I would be pleased to provide them to you, Congressman.
Mr. Secretary, news reports, or the Heritage Foundation Oversight Project has released this document that is allegedly a flyer distributed at a non-governmental organization in Mexico called the Resource Center Matamoros, which is said to read in part, if translated, reminder to vote for President Biden when you are in the United States. We need another 4 years of his term to stay open. I note, by the way, I understand this RCM has denied that this is authentic, but of course there are competing reports about it. But let me ask you this: what actions is the Department of Homeland Security taking to ensure that, especially given the millions of illegal entries, including 2 million gotaways, that non-citizens are being prevented from registering and voting unlawfully?
Congressman, individuals who are not citizens of the United States cannot vote in federal elections.
But that's not what I asked. I asked what actions DHS is taking to ensure that that doesn't occur.
Well, two things. Number one, I believe that it is state and local election officials that monitor the eligibility of individuals. We do not oversee the election enrollment process. What we do is enforce our borders and, in fact...
So said shorter, nothing.
In fact...
how can Congress and the American people have confidence that the outcome of close elections will not turn on the votes of non-citizens who have registered and voted unlawfully?
Congressman, election security is one of our priorities. In the distribution of federal grant funds to state and local jurisdictions, we have made election security a priority.
Well, okay, so they say election security is a priority, but, here's the thing. As was pointed out the other day by the Speaker of the House, you do not need documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. Motor voter, you go and get your driver's license, and the question they ask you are you an American citizen? And if you say yes, regardless of whether you are or you're not, you get the little star on your driver's license that allows you to go and register to vote, and it says that you're an American citizen. It can be used to register to vote. And you know that this is going to happen. And it is apparently at question. I mean, that it needs to be tracked down a little bit more, but I mean, there are indeed competing reports on this. But there were flyers apparently distributed at what they call non-government organization resources center in Mexico that were encouraging immigrants to vote for President Joe Biden when they get to the United States. The flyers were obtained by muckraker.com, and they discovered the flyers at a resource center in Matamoros. The flyers were being distributed to illegal aliens to use in coming to the United States, and were even found in the walls of porta potties at the location. In a recorded conversation, after being told by a journalist from Muckraker that they were just trying to get help as many people as possible before Trump gets elected, the RCM founder Gabby Zavala laughed and said, "We are in the same boat." So there seems to be a little bit of legitimacy to these flyers that are being distributed saying, hey, listen, when you get to America, be sure you vote for Biden. We need him for 4 more years so we can keep the border open. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, it is becoming very evident what the Democrats' plan was all along. They're going to get millions of people into this country illegally, Millions of them are going to find their way to get a driver's license and then get registered to vote, and they're going to vote in this coming election. All of this was by design. And it just angers me beyond belief that the United States Senate is not willing to sit and hear the evidence that has been put together by Mark Green and the Homeland Security Committee and other committees and these articles of impeachment. No, no, no. We just want to sweep this all under the rug and move on. Don't look here, nothing to see. It pisses me off. I'm sorry, it makes me so angry that this is going to happen, but it's going to happen. Raise unmitigated hell about this. Call these Democrat senators and let them know how you feel about it. We're going to have Marsha Blackburn on. We'll ask her what she thinks can be done to change the mind of Chuck Schumer and not just have these articles of impeachment swept under a rug and never considered by the full Senate. It is 22 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Well, let me talk to you about the Grace Point people over at Grace Point Healthcare over in Franklin. It is the standard for affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine. How? Well, as a direct pay provider, your health care would be delivered without the red tape of an insurer's guideline. Smart Care plans make it even more affordable. Starting at only $69 a month, you get free office visits and basic labs for the entire year. Now, Grace Point identifies and treats the root causes of conditions, not just the symptoms, utilizing a comprehensive functional approach, and by usually seeing you the same day or the next day, you're treated at your convenience. That's what you want, right? Not having to wait weeks and weeks and weeks to get to see a doctor. Grace Point Healthcare, affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. They are located on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 615-599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule an appointment.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
6 jurors now in place for Donald Trump's hush money trial, and the U.S. Supreme Court allowing Idaho to enforce a law that limits gender-affirming care. We'll talk about it all 30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There is Mac Morey, who handles the news duties for us here. He's in his place, and also he's the host of Mac Morey's Wide, Wacky, Weird World of Sports, which happens at 5:25 each day. We really enjoy that. Mac, good to have you in the chair today.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
And there's Chris Weber. He's pushing all the buttons to make things work properly around and make sure, and keep me on time. That's what his main is. He's got the whip. He keeps me on
Wrap
line.
it up, Wilson.
That's right. While we have a moment, because it's going to be a busy day, I just wanted to throw in a moment of levity. And my favorite sort of personal story of the day out of Memphis, Tennessee. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but a man was arrested after Memphis police say he tried to rob a gas station with a live snake on Monday. 26-year-old Reginald Cook is charged with 2 counts of attempted aggravated robbery. His bond's been set at $4,000. He walked into a Shell station located on Elvis Presley Boulevard and made a purchase. Then 30 minutes later, he comes back and demands money. Now, the cashier thought Cook had a weapon because he kept reaching into his clothing. And after the cashier refused to open the register, he left. Then about 35 minutes later, he comes back with a live 5-foot snake wrapped around his neck and carried a green backpack. He shouted at the cashier, "Give me the money," while reaching inside the backpack. The cashier, I guess he was behind bulletproof glass or something. He didn't seem too concerned about the guy. He called 911 and pulled out his own firearm.
Yeah, baby.
There you go. No money was taken and no one was injured. Now, Memphis Police Department took the man into custody, and they found a railroad spike and a rock inside his backpack.
He was doing the best he could with what he had, I guess.
That's right. They also took possession of the snake. So you'll see, the snake has been detained by the Memphis Police Department. I don't know. Animal control must have been called in, but they took possession of the snake.
He wanted to look tough, thought he could
right.
look scary if he had a snake on his
Maybe
neck.
they thought he could, wiggle it at him, and he'd think he's about to get bit or something. I don't know. He probably wasn't a venomous snake if they had him around his neck.
Probably not, no.
Yeah. Well, you got to give the guy an E for effort.
He tried really hard.
He did everything he could to get money, and it just wasn't going to happen.
Sometimes your best just isn't good enough.
That's right. It's like if a snake can't get you money, I don't know what you're going to do there. Listen, we got a lot going on here today, but right now it's time for the news on Super Talk 99.7.
.30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 84 degrees in Nashville, a bit breezy, expecting rains, possible storms later on this evening. Weather forecast and a traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. A New York judge has seated 6 jurors in former President Trump's hush money trial, slotting the first pieces into place before the official proceedings begin. But as Jonathan Karl notes, finding the 18 people necessary has become a bit of a challenge.
Ideally, in a criminal case, you'd want somebody who had absolutely no familiarity whatsoever with the defendant. I mean, there's nobody in America. How many people in the world don't know who Donald Trump is, and how many of those people don't have an opinion about Donald Trump? So it's a very high bar.
And one juror was dismissed today after posts were found on social media from them discussing, quote, locking Trump up. The U.S. Supreme Court has allowed Idaho to enforce a law that limits gender-affirming health care. The decision overrides 2 lower court rulings that blocked the law. More from Devin Dwyer outside the Supreme Court in Washington.
Idaho now joins more than 20 other states in severely restricting gender-affirming treatments over the objection of many American medical organizations. The 3 liberal justices here said they would have kept the law on hold, assuming they'll take up the case some point in the future.
The court did not weigh in on the merits of the law, but the conservative majority said it can now be enforced while a lawsuit moves forward. Idaho's law would punish doctors with up to 10 years in prison if they provide puberty blockers or hormone therapy to transgender kids under the age of 18. It has been challenged by 2 families seeking that care. The court did say they can continue to receive the care in the meantime. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
What an absolute mess. Hey, it's Dan Mandison. Look at my closets. Unorganized to say the least. Even my window dormer is a train wreck. Stuff is everywhere. Now, luckily, California Closets is coming to my rescue. My personal design consultant, Vince, stopped by, measured, and is now showing me how to become more space efficient and organized on his 3D CAD system. It is amazing. And soon, my space is going to be organized, and yes, even Bandit approves. California Closets, a local company that can customize the storage in any room of your house. California Closets, what can they do for you? Find them online at californiaclosets.com and reach out for your free in-home consultation.
All right, I want you to be honest with me. Are you completely happy with the way your weight is? Well, I was not happy with mine. You see, I lost a lot of weight last year, but I started regaining it, and I decided before this thing got out of control again, I was going to do something about it. So I went to see the folks at Restoration Wellness Med Spa. Now, I've never taken on a weight loss client before. I am impressed with the program that Jamie and Carly at Restoration Wellness Med Spa in Lebanon developed for me. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. They took a look at my history, my lifestyle, and suggested an approach that's starting to show some real results. And amazingly, this is the good part of it, I'm not hungry. I don't do that very well, so that's a good thing. Beyond that, Cabana Wife and I are undergoing peptide therapy at Restoration Wellness Med Spa and are thrilled with the results. We both have noticed greater mental clarity and increased energy. So whether your goal is to lose weight or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness Med Spa has a solution for you. Maybe it's time for you to join. More than 1,000 patients have already seen life-changing results. Here's the number, 615-470-8124. And learn more at restorationwellnessmedspa.com. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, on this 16th day of April. We got about, 87 degrees outside? We're knocking on the door. Is that right? Yeah, 87.
It's warm.
Knocking on the door of 90.
Yep.
I mean, how about that? And beautiful, abundant sunshine outside, so enjoy that. We got a little problem on 840. If you are listening to our traffic report and our news reports, apparently a CSX crew ran some kind of front loader, I don't know, some piece of heavy equipment. An excavator, there you go, front loader, into the bridge there, and they have to check it out to make sure it is structurally sound. Now, that's not something easily or quickly done, because you got to bring in engineers to look at things, and so, again, be aware of delays on 840 because of that.
Yep, that's down in Thompson Station. It's the eastbound lane. So the westbound, if you're going west from 65 on 840, you can still traverse through that area. But if you're going eastbound, coming from, just say, the Memphis side of things, of 40, that direction going east, you cannot go through there.
Because eastbound is down.
That is correct. Nicely done.
Thank you. That's what I do. Let's talk about stuff going on here closer to home, because we're going to be talking a lot about the swamp, but I want to get these stories in very prominently in the show. The question remains, will the Covenant shooters' writings be released? There is a court hearing that has been reopened. It's been delayed for months, and Judge Aisha Miles is hearing a testimony about whether or not the Covenant shooters' writings should be made public. And what I hate about this story is the subheadline, a decision may not be made until late 2024 or 2025 at the earliest. How long is this thing going to drag on? Oh, my goodness. You know, it's been long enough here, don't you think? This all has to do, of course, with the families who jumped into the middle of the lawsuit to have the writings of the shooter released. Many people believe there is a public interest in having those things released, so we can understand better the motivations of something that happened. A horrible day where 6 lives were lost at the Covenant School, but the families and the church and the school all intervened and said, no, we don't want it released. I wonder why. I want to know why they think it's such a problem. It seems to me that we would all benefit. I mean, they argue for things to be done by the state legislature to make sure this doesn't happen again, but the state legislature, understandably, can't really make any kind of decisions about what's the right approach without having some better understanding of really what was motivating this individual to carry out these heinous attacks. So it's going, and they're hearing, there's more lawyers involved in this thing than there are eggs in a dozen of eggs. I mean, there's so many lawyers we added it up one time. The hourly rate of all the lawyers involved in this case could settle the national debt. It's just ridiculous how this thing has spiraled out of control. And the judge never really should have allowed the intervention, because it's never been allowed before. And I just think I feel very strongly about this, that there is a compelling public interest in knowing more about this case. And there's not going, from what we can tell, to be a trial because the shooter was killed on the scene. So there's nobody to try, as far as we can tell. And why we can't see this stuff is just beyond me. And sort of a related item, though several Covenant families urged, according to Channel 2, House lawmakers to kill a bill to allow teachers to carry a gun in schools, the sponsors plan to push it to a vote as early as this week. It is my desire and expectation to lift it from the desk and have a vote on it before we adjourn, sine die, said Representative Ryan Williams, a Republican of Cookville. Now, the Senate has already passed a measure. The bill had been held at the desk in the House for nearly a year now, meaning that Williams can pull it up for a vote and have it scheduled over the next available calendar whenever he's ready. It's not clear whether or not they're going to be able to squeeze it in based on the conversation I had with leaders up there. But there is, I think, a desire to see if they can get this thing passed and then have it go to the desk of the governor. Now, the idea here is that some teachers, if they jump through a bunch of hoops, they have to have a psychological evaluation. They have to have meetings with the superintendent and the principal and the local police chief. They have to go through 80 hours of training a year. But if they go through all of those hoops, then they would be allowed to carry a concealed weapon on campus. And a lot of families, including the Covenant families, are against it. So on one hand, the Covenant people don't want to give us the information to make good decisions about what kind of law might be helpful. But on the other hand, they're against the things that the state legislature has done to try to solve that problem, try to make kids safer. I'm in favor of this bill. I think it's a good idea. I bet you probably in the state of Tennessee, there are not about but 10 or 12 people who would take advantage of it, mostly at schools where you don't have, and there are some, SROs. So if you don't have a school resource officer, this seems like it would be a good idea. Remember, and I've talked about this endlessly, in a situation where seconds count, the police are minutes away. In Covenant, from the time the first call went out to the time that the first officers arrived on scene, 8 minutes. All 6 murders were conducted within the first 3 minutes of the attack. So if you don't have somebody there, and there was an SRO normally at this school, but that SRO was apparently on vacation. So as I understand, and they did not replace that person when he was out. So here we have it. They won't let us see the writings, and they don't want us to pass any bills that will help the situation. It's maddening. It's maddening. The Tennessee state legislature has passed a bill protecting homeowners from squatters. A new law aims to remove the burden from homeowners and expedite the process of removing illegal occupants, rather. This from the Channel 4 newsroom. Tennessee Senate voted to approve a bill that makes it easier for property owners to extract illegal occupants, known as squatters, from their properties or homes. Representative Tim Rudd of Murfreesboro, along with Senator Todd Gardenhire of Chattanooga, sponsored the state Senate version of the bill. It's become a serious problem in certain states in recent years, as each state has varying language on where the right of property ends, and dishonest trespassers have become well-versed in these laws, and they try to exploit the loopholes. Squatters do not have rights in Tennessee. The responsibility lands on the homeowner, however, to initiate a judicial eviction, which can cost thousands of dollars in legal fees and property repairs. This is proactive legislation that protects property owners but also deters bad actors, according to Representative Rudd. The fate of the Tennessee voucher bill, this is the governor's primary effort this particular legislative session that would allow for students and their parents to choose another school and to use some funding from the state to pay for that education. The money would follow the student. That's the idea. The problem is the House has one version, the Senate has another, and the Tennessean says, will Governor Lee's voucher proposal make it to a final vote? Its chances look increasingly grim, says the Tennessean, after yet another day without a significant committee vote on the measure. I think most of what's going on here, my opinion and my sense of it, is that there are conversations happening, but they're happening not in a hearing room. They're happening between the governor, the Speaker of the House, and the Speaker of the Senate, the Lieutenant Governor. So I think that's where it's all going. But this does need some more work on it. It needs to be massaged. It needs to come out of conference. And I don't know if it's going to make it or not. But the Tennessee Journal, citing unnamed sources, reported Monday that the vouchers proposal was dead. No one has indicated any significant progress. Well, you don't know what's happening behind the closed doors. Last time we talked to the governor about it, he held a rather positive view that all the differences would eventually work out. What I will say to you is, it's amazing how quickly things can get done as you have a looming deadline. if there's a real desire to do it. Now, this is a big jump, and it is something radically different, but one that I think would be a good thing for the state of Tennessee and for students, because we have an education system, quite frankly, in some areas, it's just not getting it done. Our kids are not getting educated the way they need to get educated, and parents ought to have other options. I'm 1,000% behind it. I hope that the legislators who might be within the sound of my voice will get their act together and find out, where they can find agreement and get this thing passed. Again, when you're trying to do big things, it is a heavy lift many times, and there are many people who have an interest in maintaining the status quo, but the status quo doesn't work in many instances. There are some good public schools, but there are a lot of public schools that just aren't getting the job done. Parents ought to have the options. I hope that they can get this thing straightened out in a reasonable amount of time before we go sine die at the end of the state legislature. We need to get an update. We'll have to tomorrow. I will make it my goal to have somebody come on and tell us what's going on and whether or not that there is going to be, this thing is going to pass, or if it's not going to pass. I will say this, that if it does not pass, this is a significant blow to Governor Bill Lee. And I think Governor Lee has the right idea here. And I think that there are a lot of people who like the idea of saying, well, if I want to keep my kid in my public school, I can. But if I feel like the public school is letting me down and they're not doing the job they need to be, why should I be wedded to only that option? Why couldn't I be able to, go after some kind of different option? And by the way, it does not take money away from the public school system. In fact, the measure as proposed by the governor would put more money in public schools. But money's not the answer. If money were the answer, then we would have the smartest kids in the world in District of Columbia public schools, because when I was there, they were the highest. There was more money spent per student in the District of Columbia public schools because they were miserably failing. A horrible example of what public education is supposed to be. They kept pumping money, and they kept pumping money into it, federal money, by the way, and they never could get better. So money's not necessarily the answer. And finding different approaches to education that work for students is. I hope that we can move forward on this. It is looking a little gloomy right now, a little grim, but I might have some hope that perhaps in the last hours, all sides can come together. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
What an absolute mess. Hey, it's Dan Mandison. Look at my closets. Unorganized to say the least. Even my window dormer is a train wreck. Stuff is everywhere. Now, luckily, California Closets is coming to my rescue. My personal design consultant, Vince, stopped by, measured, and is now showing me how to become more space efficient and organized on his 3D CAD system. It is amazing. And soon, my space is going to be organized, and yes, even Bandit approves. California Closets, a local company that can customize the storage in any room of your house. California Closets, what can they do for you? Find them online at californiaclosets.com and reach out for your free in-home consultation.
A portion of 840 eastbound still closed. We'll give you those details. Plus, articles of impeachment presented today for Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And we take a look at average rent prices around the mid-state. Those stories at 4. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets. It's relatively flat today. The Dow Jones up a little bit, up 63 points. The S&P down 10. The NASDAQ down just a hair under 20. And really, everything that's going on right now, it really is looking at the Fed and what they're going to do about interest rates. To that regard, there is news on that today. Let's check in with John Maxon from Beacon Capital Management Firm on that. Good afternoon, John.
Hey, good afternoon, Brian. Yeah, at least for the Dow, it ended a 6-day losing streak, up just a bit. But again, to your point, the big news is Federal Chairman Jerome Powell, his remarks today. The Fed continues to fight inflation, which it feels like we've been living longer than we should. And it's been pretty much on a steady decline until the last month or so, which has begun to really concern the Fed. And so Chairman Powell actually came out today and spoke. Market was watching that really closely, and he commented that based on the recent inflation information, that there could be a delay in interest rate cuts, which leaves the market a little bit nervous. The 10-year Treasury actually is at its highest point it's been at since November 6th. A couple other Fed speakers tomorrow, jobless claims later in the week, so the market a little bit on edge, so important reports later in the week.
All right, thank you very much, John. To find out about all the things that John and all the nice folks over at Beacon Capital Management can do to help you get ready for your retirement by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 59 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock now. You know, the spring season is upon us. It's a beautiful day today. Now is the time to start thinking about your outdoor lawn equipment. And DT McCall's is helping you out with their spring Cub Cadet mower sale. Now, this is going on in a couple of different locations. It's going on right now through the 20th at their Lafayette location, and then it will be picking up on April 26th through May 4th at the Cookeville location. Now, you should know that DT McCall & Sons is ranked as one of the top Cub Cadet dealers in the United States. I have one, and I got to tell you, it is a great piece of equipment. I love that thing so much. I actually enjoy mowing my yard. And you can find Cub Cadet riding mowers with 42 to 72-inch deck wide. That's how wide the swath is for those large areas, as well as a Cub Cadet walk-behind mower if you happen to have a smaller lot. And when you purchase a Cub Cadet mower from DT McCall's, you'll be getting access to their in-house service department. It's nearly impossible to find mower service like this anywhere else. So with a large selection of Cub Cadet mowers, free delivery, and in-house service department, it's an easy choice. Again, that's going on now at the Lafayette location, and will be continuing through from the 26th through the 4th of May at the Cookeville location. Learn more at their website, dtmccalls.com.
For a 2 now, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 84 degrees in Nashville. Possible showers, thunderstorms this evening. Quick look at traffic. Got an 840 closure. 840 eastbound closed from the Carters Creek exit to Columbia Avenue. Motorists being diverted at exit 23. This is because an excavator hit the bridge support beams at the Sudbury overpass. Right now, it's unknown when that roadway will reopen, but they have inspectors ruling whether or not it's safely drivable. Traffic and a complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes to tell you all about it. Going over the nation's capital, the Senate has been presented with articles of impeachment targeting Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Senators expected to be sworn in as jurors tomorrow, but the question is, will there be a trial? Stephen Portnoy reports.
The articles amount to an indictment of the Homeland Security Secretary, charging him with failing to stop the flow of migrants across the U.S.-Mexico border.
Alejandro N. Mayorkas has repeatedly violated laws enacted by Congress regarding immigration and border security.
Tennessee Republican Mark Green, chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, presented the articles to the Senate. Democrats may seek to swiftly dismiss the charges, which they consider partisan and unfounded.
And this is what Tennessee Representative Mark Green said today in the House.
Mayorkas, in violation of his oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and to well and faithfully discharge the duties of his office, has willfully and systemically refused to comply with the federal immigration laws in that. Throughout his tenure as Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro N. Mayorkas has repeatedly violated laws enacted by Congress regarding immigration and border security.
The next step will occur tomorrow afternoon when Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says lawmakers will be sworn into a court of impeachment. And right now in Tennessee, News 2 reports based on a report from Zumper looking at the expensive rates for renting an apartment in Nashville. The report says the median price for a one-bedroom in Franklin was the highest, a little over $1,700 a month. Nashville at second, just under $1,700. And then third, Spring Hill, $1,430 a month. And according to the latest report, Columbia had the fastest growing rent price year over year, with rental prices up 8.1% from this time last year. Clarksville, second fastest with 8%, followed by Spring Hill with a growth rate of 1.4%. And looking at decreasing rates, Franklin saw a 2.8% decrease, with Nashville and Lebanon seeing double that decrease. That is the latest news, traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
What an absolute mess. Hey, it's Dan Mandison. Look at my closets. Unorganized to say the least. Even my window dormer is a train wreck. Stuff is everywhere. Now, luckily, California Closets is coming to my rescue. My personal design consultant, Vince, stopped by, measured, and is now showing me how to become more space efficient and organized on his 3D CAD system. It is amazing. And soon, my space is going to be organized, and yes, even Bandit approves. California Closets, a local company that can customize the storage in any room of your house. California Closets, what can they do for you? Find them online at californiaclosets.com and reach out for your free in-home consultation.
It is 8 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock, hour number 2 of the drive, now underway on a very busy news day, this April 16th. We got a nice day going, 84 degrees here in bucolic Watertown. A little breezy, but not bad. And we still have a problem on 840 out there. Where is it again? The name of the creek? I forgot the name of the creek.
I think it's Carter's
Creek. Yeah. Eastbound is down on 840 near Carter's Creek.
Yeah, in the Thompson Station area.
That's right. That's where that is. And apparently a front loader that was used by a rail crew struck the underpinnings of the bridge. I've seen the pictures, did some fairly significant damage.
Bad, yeah.
And now the question is, has the integrity of the bridge been damaged? In other words, can it still support traffic? And it doesn't look like that's going to be resolved like in an hour or two. So if you're coming from like Memphis and you're thinking about getting over to taking the loop around over to 65, eastbound is not going to go anywhere for you.
No.
You're going to get a wall there. So again, I don't know how long that's going to be resolved. Big traffic snarl. Now, as I mentioned, a busy day. We talked earlier about the articles of impeachment being delivered to the Senate by the House. Then we'll revisit that again coming up a little later in the show, and we'll be joined by Marsha Blackburn at 5:30 to talk about that. But the other thing is, of course, that we're doing everything we can now to find out what's happening with this the case involving the documents surrounding the Covenant shooter. There was a hearing on that today, and so we're watching that very closely. But I want to turn now to the Supreme Court. Now, this is I'm going to give you a little background, and then you're going to hear a lot of the arguments yourself. The Supreme Court justices signal wariness of a law used for January 6 prosecutions. This is from Hill.com. The scope of federal obstruction law used against scores of January 6 rioters, about 350 of them, and former President Trump, drew scrutiny from the Supreme Court on Tuesday, a signal that the justices may be wary of the Justice Department's far-reaching prosecution of the January 6th Capitol attack. Joseph Fisher, a former police officer accused of storming the Capitol on January 6, 2021, challenged the law in an effort to eliminate one of several counts he faces, obstruction of an official proceeding. From Real Clear Politics, Tuesday, during arguments in Fisher versus the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice Samuel Alito and Neil Gorsuch questioned U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar about the scope of a federal law that prosecutors have used to charge more than 350 people who participated in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol, charging them with obstructing an official proceeding. Now, 2 of the 4 charges former President Trump faces in D.C. federal court also relate to this very same question about whether a law that makes it a federal offense to corruptly obstruct an official proceeding applies to otherwise peaceful protesters. Now, I have pulled, again, I don't normally do this, but one of the things I love about this show is that, you know, there's no place you can go, really, honestly. When you do cable news, you get little snippets of sound, and it gives you some idea about what's going on. If you watch on the TV news, or you listen to the radio newscast, they don't have the time to really go into things in great detail. But I thought that the questioning by Justice Samuel Alito of the Solicitor General, man, when you say Solicitor General, that's the person who argues the case on behalf of the Department of Justice or the government. She's the government's main litigator before the Supreme Court. When you don't really get to hear a lot of that. And Alito had some great questions. It signals to me that maybe the high court is prepared to say that this law has been used improperly against, well, President Trump, former President Trump, and about 350 plus people who have been charged in connection with the January 6th riots. So here is about 3 minutes of his questioning in the back and forth between Alito and Solicitor General Prelogar.
General, let me give you a specific example. So we've had a number of protests in the courtroom. Let's say that today 5 people get up, one after the other, and they shout either keep the January 6th insurrectionists in jail or free the January 6th patriots. And as a result of this, our police officers have to remove them forcibly from the courtroom. And let's say we have to it delays the proceeding for 5 minutes. An advocate might lose his or her train of thought and not provide the best argument. So would that be a violation of 1512C2?
I think it would be difficult for the government to prove that.
Why?
At the outset, we don't think that 1512C2 picks up minimal, de minimis, minor interferences. We think that the term obstruct on its face connotes a meaningful interference with the proceeding.
Well, it doesn't say, I'm sorry, C2 does not refer just to obstruct. It says obstructs, influences, or impedes. Impedes is something less than obstructs. The plain meaning of impede in Webster's is to interfere with or get in the way of the progress of, to hold up. In the OED, it is to retard in progress or action by putting obstacles in the way. So it doesn't require obstruction. It requires the causing of delay.
And if this
So again, why wouldn't that fall within? Now, you could say, well, we're not going to prosecute that. And indeed, for all the protests that have occurred in this court, the Justice Department has not charged any serious offenses, and I don't think any one of those protesters has been sentenced to even 1 day in prison.
And I think it's in a fundamentally different posture than if they had stormed into this courtroom, overrun the Supreme Court police, required the justices and other participants to flee for their safety, and done so with clear evidence of intent to obstruct.
Absolutely. What happened on January 6th was very, very serious, and I'm not equating this with that. But we need to find out what are the outer reaches of this statute under your interpretation. Let me give you another example. Yesterday, protesters blocked the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and disrupted traffic in San Francisco. What if something similar to that happened all around? All the bridges from Virginia were blocked, and members from Virginia who needed to appear at a hearing couldn't get there or were delayed in getting there. Would that be a violation of this provision?
It sounds to me like that wouldn't satisfy the proceeding element nor the nexus requirement.
Why would it not satisfy the proceeding? Let's say they want to get to the Capitol to vote.
Well, if we had clear evidence that the purpose of the protesters who had set up the blockage somewhere, some distance away from the court, was because they had a specific proceeding in mind, because you have to show that the natural and probable effect of the action is to obstruct. There has to be a relationship in time, causation, and logic.
Well, there you have it. I mean, you got a good sense of it. I mean, they went on to ask, other things, hypotheticals about, what would apply? Well, would this apply? Would that apply? He went on and said, what if we had an interruption to something that happened in this court? I mean, nobody's been charged with any jail time for disrupting the Supreme Court. Pretty good point there by Alito. Here's at the end of it all. Here is how the Washington Examiner summed it up, and I think it's a pretty good assessment of it. Supreme Court majority appears leery of Biden Department of Justice in major January 6th case. The Supreme Court on Tuesday heard oral arguments on whether part of an obstruction law can be used to prosecute hundreds of defendants involved in the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol, a case that has implications, as we've mentioned, for former President Donald Trump. Former police officer from Pennsylvania, Joseph Fisher, is appealing a lower court's ruling denying his bid to evade a federal charge of corruptly obstructing an official proceeding, more specifically, the congressional certification of Joe Biden's victory over Trump that prompted thousands of protesters to descend on the Capitol some 3 years ago. The 9 justices on Tuesday appeared divided along ideological lines, but remember, we have a 6-3 conservative majority. With the majority appearing wary of siding completely with the Biden Justice Department. 6 justices appointed by Republican presidents, including 3 by Trump, raised pointed questions about how the Justice Department applied a provision from the 2002 Sarbanes-Oxley Act, a law that was passed following the fraud scandal at now-defunct energy company Enron in the Fisher case. The provision carries a maximum prison sentence of 20 years. For Fisher's legal strategy, much of the case hangs on the use of the phrase otherwise in the language of the federal criminal statute at hand, which makes it a crime for anyone who otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding. Fisher's attorney, Jeffrey Green, argued that the entire phrase deals with evidence tampering, a theory that George W. Bush appointee Samuel Alito says might be biting off more than you can chew. One might say it can certainly be read the way the government reads it, and it might even be a little more straightforward reading. Later on in the oral argument, it was Alito and Gorsuch, a Trump appointee, who raised more hypothetical questions, talking about the Golden Gate Bridge protests that blocked traffic just yesterday. I mean, they came with real-world examples. I love that. You know, things that are in the news today and yesterday, they came in and said, how would this apply? You know, could they be charged? Clarence Thomas, who, by the way, was absent yesterday without explanation, was back today, asked Preligar whether the government had ever used the 2002 provision in this way before deploying it in the January 6th case. There have been many violent protests that have interfered with proceedings. Has the government applied this provision to other protests in the past? And that's a fair question. What about the rioters outside the White House, who tried to burn down a church across the way from the White House and defaced all kinds of, I mean, that was violent. It took a lot of tear gas to clear that up. So, why is that any different, and why weren't those people charged with similar things? So a very interesting thing. I think probably the high court is going to rule at least 5-4, maybe 6-3, that the Department of Justice has overreached in using this particular law to prosecute January 6 defendants. And then, of course, that could have real implications for other trials that are pending, as there are many, for former President Donald Trump. 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
What an absolute mess.
Beacon Capital Management has an annual Shred Day event on Saturday, April 20th. That's this weekend at their parking lot there in Cool Springs. And if you have something that you want to get shredded, maybe some of the documents after you've done your taxes, whatever, well, just go there and they hand them to you and you can watch them, stick them right in the old shredder and get turned into confetti. So you might want to try to do that. And listen, it would be a good thing, I think, if you took a moment or two to check out something on their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is Beacon Capital Management's free retirement savings calculator. In a matter of seconds, just really within a minute, you'll know exactly where you stand on your retirement journey. In other words, are you putting enough money behind and back? Are you making the right investments? It'll give you some idea. And I have a feeling that once you take a look at that, you're probably going to want to give them a call. Here's the number, 615-488-9303. Have them take a look at it, do a deep dive, and make some recommendations. You have nothing to lose except for the worry that you possibly have. Wouldn't it be great to replace your worry with confidence that you're on the right path? The number again is 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
840 East closures, impeachment articles presented for Alejandro Mayorkas, and today's Money News. Those stories, 4:30, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, on a very busy news day on this Tuesday, April 16th. We got interstate highways that are closed. That's one local story. We got all kinds of things happening on the Hill. And again, impeachment articles have been sent from the House to the Senate for Alejandro Mayorkas. And that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch over the course of the next day or so. Let me turn to this story, though, for a few moments, because I think this is pretty interesting stuff as well. Remember the other day we told you about a guy named Uri Berliner, who was a senior editor over at NPR, state-run media, NPR. And he published a sort of a bombshell essay about a week ago that outlined how he felt the publicly funded NPR has lost America's trust by approaching news stories with a left-wing bias. Well, we all went, yeah, and so what else is new? But I mean, honestly, to have somebody who works on the inside come forward and say this, and by the way, he did this at some jeopardy to his job because he did not clear this with NPR, which is apparently normally done if you're going to do something that goes out, to other entities with your name attached with it and your association with NPR, made known, then, you have to get clearance. You got to get clearance, and he didn't get no clearance. And so, we all thought, well, yeah, we all knew that, but it was very interesting to have somebody from the inside who, by the way, no fan of Donald Trump personally. But he, is sort of the old school of journalism that, well, we need to be fair and balanced in the way we report these things. Such a quaint old concept that telling both sides of a story fairly. What an idea that is that's been lost in journalism. Well, the people at NPR are plenty hacked off because as soon as this story came out, there were a lot of people in Washington who said, see, that's what we've been telling you. Let's defund NPR. And today, the new development is this Uri Berliner guy has been suspended from his job. NPR media writer David Folkenflik, well, there's a name.
Careful.
I'm sorry, David Folkenflik, revealed on Tuesday that Berliner was sidelined for 5 days without pay beginning last Friday. Folkenflik, who reviewed a copy of the letter from NPR brass, said the company told the editor he had failed to secure approval for outside work for other news outlets, which is a requirement for NPR journalists. NPR called the letter a quote-unquote final warning, saying Berliner would be fired if he violated NPR's policy again. Neither NPR nor Berliner immediately responded to requests for comment. Berliner is a dues-paying member of NPR's newsroom union. That would probably be AFTRA, because in D.C., AFTRA represents the radio people, stands for the American Federation of Television and Radio Actors. In full disclosure, when I was in D.C., I was required to be a member of AFTRA. And that means that I was represented by the same people who represented puppeteers. I don't know.
Kind of fits with NPR, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, it absolutely does. No, I mean, if you were a performer on television, in other places it's different, but it was in D.C., it was AFTRA, and you had to be a member. Well, he's appealing. He could appeal through AFTRA, but apparently Folkenflik, boy, I got to be careful saying that, reported that the editor is not appealing the punishment. According to the New York Post, Berliner is a Peabody Award-winning journalist who has worked at NPR for 25 years. He called out journalistic blind spots around major news events, including the origins of COVID, the war in Gaza, the Hunter Biden laptop story, in an essay published on the site Free Press. The fallout from the essay sparked outrage from many of his colleagues. They can't stand it that this guy had the temerity to find an outlet to point out their lack of objectivity. How dare you suggest that we're not objective? And now he's paying a price for it. He's on suspension for 5 days without pay, and apparently he's not going to fight the suspension. It's just like an unpaid vacation, I suppose. But I'm telling you, I'm surprised that AFTRA on his behalf has not challenged it. He's chosen not to do that. When it'll be interesting to see whether he long-term holds on to his job, or whether that they find some other excuse to boot him out the door. Remember, he's not even a fan of Donald Trump, but just was appalled by the lack of objectivity. In the newsroom at NPR, there's some 80-some people there. Not one of them is a registered Republican. 31 minutes now past the hour. Time for news.
.431, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 84 degrees in Music City. Showers, possible storms expected later this evening. Looking at traffic, 840 east from Carter's Creek Pike to Columbia Avenue and Thompson Station going to remain closed for some time. This is because an excavator hit the Sudbury overpass. TDOT there now developing a temporary path, but for now, keep seeking alternate routes. We got a forecast traffic report just ahead in 5 minutes. More than 2 months after the House voted to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, House impeachment managers transmitted the articles of impeachment against Mayorkas to the Senate this afternoon. Speaking at a press conference inside the Capitol following the handoff, Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz urged his Democratic colleagues to participate in these proceedings, saying the stakes were too high to do nothing.
The Senate has a clear obligation under the Constitution and 200 years of precedent. We need to hold a trial. We need to allow the managers to present the evidence, and then every one of us who is following the law should convict and remove Alejandro Mayorkas for aiding and abetting a criminal invasion of the United States of America.
And the next step will occur tomorrow afternoon when Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says lawmakers will be sworn into a court of impeachment. Now over to Money News. Daria Albinger filling us in on Wall Street.
Stocks slid going into the close after a strong start to the session. The Dow snapped a 6-day losing streak, rising 64 points. The Nasdaq fell 20. The S&P gave up 10. The markets rose early on some strong earnings reports, including from United Health and Morgan Stanley. Trump Media and Technology wasn't so lucky. Shares continue to fall even after the company announced it would launch a TV platform. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is suggesting what a lot of people have been thinking. The central bank may have to wait a little longer before it can cut a key interest rate. He told a panel discussion that he expects inflation to slow this year, but that it would be appropriate to keep rates where they are now. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee and 5 of his counterparts are telling auto workers across the South that unionizing could put their jobs in jeopardy. Workers at VW's plant in Chattanooga vote this week on representation by the UAW.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
If you've been around this area for a while, you know this is a big deal. This is coming soon. 3 incredible days, April 26th, 27th, and 28th. This is the big one at Genesis Diamonds. Unbelievable store-wide savings up to 35% off. Nothing will be held back. Rings, earrings, bands, bracelets, pendants, thousands of engagement ring settings, natural and lab-grown diamonds, special pricing across the board with zero-interest financing as well. This is when the staff at Genesis know they can break the rules. Plus, world-class designers have flown in with all the new collections of fashion jewelry from New York and California, the stuff you can't find anywhere else, and this will be on sale. If you're getting engaged or have a special event coming up, you can't miss this incredible buying opportunity. Don't miss the expanded selection and the extreme value pricing. You know, people actually drive for hours to be a part of this sale. It's the 26th of April, 27th, and 28th, exclusively at Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolexes in Green Hills and Cool Springs, both locations. See store for details. It's 39 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. A very busy day, and we've got problems on I-40 eastbound in the Thompson Station area, where apparently a railroad crew hit the underpinning of the highway, Interstate 840, the big beltway that goes around there, or half a beltway, I guess it is, and hit a trestle there, and it's all shut down on the eastbound lane, and it's going to be a while, it sounds like. They did damage to the underpinning of the bridge, and now the engineers have to be brought in and make a determination about whether the bridge has sustained so much damage that perhaps traffic cannot be let across it. If that happens, it's going to be a mess for a while. But, sometimes they look at them and say, yeah, we can continue to do traffic while we do the repairs here. One way or the other, they've got to do that assessment, and that's going to take time. So if you're on 840 eastbound, heading, let's say, from Memphis around to I-65 south, you're going to be having a little bit of a problem there, as that part of the highway is just closed until they make that determination. We're on it, and as soon as that gets better, we'll let you know. All right? So be advised. More on our traffic report here in just a few moments. We've got other things going on that we're going to get into. In the top of the 5 o'clock hour, the articles of impeachment have been sent from the House to the Senate, and the question is whether or not they'll even be considered by the Democrat-controlled body. And we'll get into that. And then in the next hour also, we're moving some things around so we can accommodate the schedule of Senator Marsha Blackburn. She'll be with us at 5:30. 5:30 instead of normally that would be 5:35, but we're going to move some things around. Mac Morey, because he's so adaptable and such a likable and easygoing fellow, is going to accommodate my request that we move the news up a little bit early at the bottom of that hour. So, Mac, you're on board with that?
Oh, I'm prepared. I'm ready.
All right, good. And then we're going to move Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports. We're going to do that after the interview.
I do warn you, it'll be more wacky. It'll be more wild.
Yeah, because we're giving you a little extra time there. All right. To make up for the fact that we made you do the news early. So we're moving things around in the 5 o'clock hour. Now, let's get down to what's happening in the swamp with regard to the Speaker, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, Speaker of the House for all of 6 months right now. It's looking like he's got a potential problem on his hands. First of all, there was Marjorie Taylor Greene, who came out and said, I think he should be, the seat should be vacated. In other words, they were going to kick him out as Speaker. Remember, really, it's Kevin McCarthy's fault here in some ways. Kevin McCarthy was so desperate to become Speaker of the House that he allowed a rule to be passed that said that any one member of the Republican caucus could come forward and make a motion to vacate the chair. And that would then immediately call for a vote on the matter. And he said, anybody can do this. And, well, it came back to haunt him because somebody did. They didn't like some of the things that he had done. And so there was a motion to vacate the chair. Matt Gaetz was deeply involved in that. And they basically fired McCarthy as Speaker. And a short time later, he left. When he left, it made the already razor-thin margins that Republicans hold to control the House of Representatives even thinner, and it's gotten even worse since then. And so now Marjorie Taylor Greene comes forward and says, I'm gonna do a motion to vacate the chair. Now, she says it's not something she plans to act on anytime soon, but she says she's prepared to do it. Now, another member has joined her. Honestly, if this is called, if they call it on the floor, I think it's entirely possible that Mike Johnson will be ejected as the Speaker of the House. And I think, quite frankly, a distraction we don't need right now. We really don't. And then my question is, who in the hell is going to want to be Speaker after that? Knowing that any one member can come forward and make a motion to vacate the chair. You can never satisfy all members of the body. What was it that American humorist Will Rogers said? I'm not a member of any organized political party. I'm a Democrat. Well, that's the way I'm beginning to feel about Republicans. I mean, they're looking like the gang that can't shoot straight. Stupid. Now, look, again, you may have some differences with some of the things that Mike Johnson has said, and I certainly do. But Massey is upset because the Speaker has now put forth a thing that most members of the Republican Party in the House are in support of. In other words, independent votes on aid for one package would be Israel. There'd be a second vote on Ukraine and a third vote on Taiwan. And then a fourth vote, I think, that was going to include some other security things, not really aid, but maybe the TikTok thing would be wrapped up into that. Give those senators a chance to say, well, for example, I really do want to support aid for Israel, but I'm not in favor of aid for Ukraine. Or, maybe I'm in favor of aid for Taiwan, but I'm not and not liking the idea of aid for Ukraine. Ukraine is the most controversial of those three. So a lot of Republicans like that. Massey is completely upset with it. Now, he's already said that he's not happy with the Speaker. But today he let it be known that he would join Marjorie Taylor Greene in co-sponsoring her motion to vacate the chair. Now, I'm going to apologize for the quality of this sound. I've done all I can do to make it better. But it was something that they caught him in a hallway and he was swarmed. And this is the best audio I could find of it. Here is Representative Thomas Massey this morning in the bowels of the House of Representatives.
There's only one person right now who can stop us from going into what happened last fall, and that's Mike Johnson. He's cleaning the barn, that's obvious. He had three things to do. He wanted to do an omnibus that broke all the spending records. He wanted to do FISA without warrants, and I wants to do Ukraine. Those are the three things. There are people riding him like a horse here. They don't care when the horse collapses. I do, because it's going to throw our confidence into turmoil.
He said riding him like a horse. The people they're using the speaker. And so he says, look, if this motion, he says he thinks there will come a time when it is called.
Because the motion is going to get called, okay? Does anybody doubt that? The motion will get called, and then he's going to lose more votes than Kevin McCarthy. And I have told him this in private, like weeks ago.
And he has called for, privately, he had a conversation and asked the speaker to resign. He said that again today.
If it is called, there will be a lot of people who vote for it. We're steering everything toward what Chuck Schumer wants. There has not been a change. I mean, if the country likes Chuck Schumer, then they should like what Speaker Johnson's accomplished in the House. Divided.
All right, so there you have it. Look, I'm not happy with the way they did the omnibus bill. I really am not. I think that it's probably wise to break these three items out because there are a lot of members who want to do something in support of Israel. And so they want to be able to vote for that, but they don't want to vote for money for Ukraine. Can't lump it all together. So he's breaking them out, individual votes, all three packages or four packages, I think, total, would be then sent to the Senate if they passed the House. I'm not sure Ukraine would pass, but at least Israel would, I think. If we go to the Senate, there's already an Israel bill over there, as I understand it, but Chuck Schumer won't touch it. And then to make things worse, the White House said today that if a single bill that just included the funding for Israel were to make it to the White House, if it passed the House and passed the Senate and it landed on the president's desk, he wouldn't sign it. I doubt that, because I'm telling you right now, I think they want to do something for Israel, but but the Biden is hoping that he'll get a package that includes Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. But the one thing I got to say that really does cheese me off a little bit is that there is nothing in any of this that tries to make them accountable for border security. I mean, for months now, the trade-off has been, we've always said as Republicans, if you want us to consider funding for Ukraine, then, you've got to give us something to secure the border. And that's gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And no compromise that would appease everybody has been able to get across the goal line. I don't like that. Look, I don't know. I think maybe the jury is still out. I think the vast majority of people inside the conference, Republican conference in the House, still support Speaker Johnson. And in fact, there's some reporting on this that said that when this got discussed behind closed doors and Massey said what he had to say, that he was roundly booed down by the rest of the caucus who were very angry. There are a lot of people in the Republican Party in the House who are very angry at Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Speaker. Now, what we've seen recently is the Speaker has the support of former President Trump. Johnson goes out to Mar-a-Lago, meets with him. They come up with a thing they want to talk about with regard to voter integrity, and it was I think he's dead on with that. And the president said that he liked the Speaker, and the Speaker has said after that meeting he feels that President Trump is 100% in his corner. So, there is that. He has the the former president has essentially wrapped his arm around the shoulder of the speaker and say, I like this guy. So that gives him a lot of credibility and a little bit of running room. But understand that if this motion is called, we're going to go through that whole rigmarole again, where because there will be at least 3 or 4 people. Remember, we don't have much of a margin that keeps the House in control of the House of Representatives. Keep Republicans in control of the House. And so if he loses 3, 4 votes, it's over. He's ejected as Speaker. And we go through the whole thing again. Remember how many weeks we went without a Speaker? Just not the time. Not just the time. If you want to make sure that you have a Speaker of the House who can do the things that conservative wants, we need to win some more House seats. Because there's always going to be somebody out there who doesn't like what the Speaker does. You can't be the Speaker and be threatened every time 1 or 2 members of the House of Representatives disagrees with what you have done. There's no way you can be an effective leader like that. It's just a disaster. Look, I think we need to hold on to Johnson. I think Johnson's instincts are good most of the time. I'm not 1,000% happy, but I think there's still a learning curve for this guy. But honestly, he's trying to herd cats here, and it's a big old mess. Watch this closely, because it's entirely possible that we're about to get headed into another one of these controversies where the Speaker gets ejected, and then who in the hell is going to want to be Speaker? You're not going to find anybody who wants that job. Stay tuned. 52 past the hour. The chairman of the Federal Reserve has said that we're on an unsustainable fiscal path. We aren't going to pay off the $34 trillion debt anytime soon. You know what they'll do. They'll just print more money to pay off the interest on the debt, and the dollar becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. Maybe it's time you think about adding something tangible to your portfolio, something you can hold in your hand, something that has actual real value. And adding gold or other precious metals to your portfolio could be the thing. Maybe you feel like you don't have the knowledge you need to make a smart decision. I certainly felt that way, but I got the professional guidance I needed at Nashville Gold and Coin. Listen, gold and silver can be a safe haven in uncertain economic times. And my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin are standing by to answer all your questions about the precious metals market. The way it works is you make an appointment, and then you sit down one-on-one with my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin. They'll answer all your questions, help you make the precious metals investment that is right for you. It's friendly, you're going to learn a lot, and you'll never be subjected to a high-pressure sales pitch. So listen, set up that one-on-one appointment by going to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
5:01. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 83 degrees. A little bit of some wind today here on Music Row. Expecting some possible showers and thunderstorms later on this evening. Traffic report plus that complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. In New York, only a few prospective jurors remain for questioning today in former President Trump's hush money trial, with 6 already seated and another batch waiting for their turn in the hot seat. Olivia Rubin is outside the courthouse in Manhattan with more on what's expected as jury selection continues.
When they finish, we are going to come back on Thursday, and they'll finish up with the 4 jurors remaining. But what the judge already did was he swore in that next panel of 96 jurors, because remember, now that they're done with the first panel, it's back to the beginning, the process we started, where over half of the jurors initially dismissed themselves, so they'll start whittling down again.
And one juror was dismissed today after posts were found on social media from them discussing locking up Trump. Here in Tennessee right now, a hearing on whether the Covenant Manifesto should be released to the public or not. It's happening. Channel 4 Stacey Cameron gives us the specifics of what is happening in the courtroom today.
This case boils down to 3 sets of documents that a judge will have to decide whether or not Metro government must turn over to the public. Now, those documents include 1, writings found by Metro police in the shooter's car and home, records from police investigative files, and police communications, including officer text messages and emails that relate to the shooter's writings and the investigations. And so all day lawyers have been arguing about whether there's any exception to the public records law that bars Metro government from turning those records over. And Metro PD says their investigation into the deadly shooting will remain open until July, so they shouldn't be forced to turn those records over because they're still looking into whether anyone was an accomplice or co-conspirator.
Covenant Church and schools say they want to keep the writings from the public because of diagrams and different things that could lead to copycat attacks. There's no evidence or witnesses in this hearing, just the attorneys making arguments and the judge asking questions. Right now in Tennessee, 33-year-old Gerald Marquise Sanford was accused of stabbing another man on March 31st. Police are still looking for him. Sanford allegedly approached a victim at the Walk of Fame Park, asked for some money before stabbing him in the neck and then running away from that victim. Anyone with information on his whereabouts is asked to call Crime Stoppers. Now, some breaking news right now from Channel 4. A house fire in Mount Juliet. This is because a propane tank sparked and exploded. It looks like fire crews have been able to extinguish those flames. It's unknown what quickly hit the propane tank, but something hit the propane tank to cause it to explode. We'll keep you updated with that right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Populations of animals. I mean, think about the white-tailed deer and how when Ed started, and maybe even before Ed a little bit, they started, working to bring these populations back. And now we have these sustainable populations that we can hunt.
Yeah.
The story of the eastern wild turkey and what's happening with turkeys. So I would consider all these things great successes. The conservation efforts that have been worked on by the personnel for years, I would think that it's a great success story for our state.
You're going to see some footage from an old film that was produced here at the agency in the Game and Fish days, and which shows some things like, the wife taking care of the animal that the officer, the husband, had to bring home to take care of, because they got a call, and times have changed. Now we have the rehabilitators that help out with that kind of thing. And
thank goodness. We got to be really good friends with some of those little animals. And my first commission in 1972.
Okay, yeah.
At that time, it was a little different. The whole law enforcement world was different then. Yep. So anyway, we got the first commission in 1972 and worked all over the state. It was really great to be able to do that. Pretty much, you had one uniform. And I noticed in the movie too, everybody wearing ties. For years and years, you had to. If you wore a long sleeve shirt, you had to wear a tie. It didn't matter if you were doing enforcement or sailing a pond or whatever you were doing. You had that tie on.
Oh wow!
Wow!
And then everybody looked forward. There was one date, and it kind of moved. It was generally around April the 1st. You switched from long sleeves to short sleeves, and you didn't have to wear a tie. And everybody's going, "Come on, April 1st."
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair on a very, very busy news day. We got more news than we can shake a stick at. And if we had a stick, we would shake it a lot. But we just don't have one. And one of the big stories has to do with a problem at exit 23 on 840 near Carter's Creek exit to Columbia Avenue. Apparently, now comes word from TDOT, according to Channel 2, that the repairs to that bridge will likely take 3 months, which means that half of that particular overpass, the eastbound lanes, will be closed to traffic for 3 months while they conduct repairs. Apparently, if you're just joining us, the problem here is that they had a train crew. There's a train track that passes underneath that overpass, and they apparently had an excavator loaded onto the back of a train car, and it struck the underneath of that bridge and did substantial damage. And now the TDOT is saying it could take 3 months to fix that bridge, which is going to be a real headache for folks here in our area. So if you don't know, if you're coming, let's say you're coming from Memphis into Nashville and you decide you want to go around on 840 and maybe, pick up I-65 southbound, this is in the Thompson Station area. And apparently the other side, as you're going from 65 up to, let's say, I-40, that's okay. But the right side of that bridge, it depends on how you look at it, but the eastbound lane of that bridge is shut down and will be shut down for 3 months.
I did happen to see a small blip, and I'm trying to find it just to clarify, but I saw that they apparently said they hope to have one lane open sometime later tonight. So I would assume probably the left lane of the eastbound lanes. So at least allow some traffic through there.
He did some pretty good damage.
Yeah, it really did.
I'm not surprised at the...
train moving down the tracks, even at slow speeds, has a lot of mass. It
was being pulled, the excavator. Yeah. Okay, all right. I was not clear on that.
That's my understanding, yes. So, if it hits a bridge, it takes an awful lot to stop. It's sort of like the situation in Baltimore. Once that ship gets to moving at a certain speed, it takes a lot to slow it down because there's so much mass involved. So anyway, we got other stuff that's going on now. I just want to give you a heads up. This is going to be a busy hour, and we're moving some things around so we can accommodate Senator Marsha Blackburn at 5:30. Normally we do these interviews at 5:35 after the news, but to accommodate her schedule, we're going to move some things around. We'll do the news at the bottom of the hour a little early. Marsha Blackburn at 5:30 sharp, and then after we do that, then we'll catch a late but special edition of Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. All right, so that's happening in this hour. I want to start with this, though. In the House of Representatives sent over the articles of impeachment to the United States Senate today. There's a whole thing that happens. There's a committee that carries over the articles. There's a little pomp and ceremony to it. And they march over, they go through Statuary Hall, they go through the rotunda from the House side, and then they go over into the Senate, and they enter the Senate chambers. And there, Mark Green, our Mark Green from the 7th Congressional District of Tennessee, he's going to be one of the people who argues, if they will allow it, the articles of impeachment before the United States Senate, because he's chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. And so he was very instrumental in producing these articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas. And he addressed the Senate today.
Resolved that Alejandro Nicolas Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security of the United States of America, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors. Throughout his tenure as Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro N. Mayorkas has repeatedly violated laws enacted by Congress regarding immigration and border security.
Now, here's the thing. The Democrats are terrified to have this trial because if they have the trial, then it's going to be a national week where we're talking nothing about the crisis at the border and how the Biden administration has absolutely destroyed any security we have on the border. This is something that for example, Senator John Tester is terrified of. He's a Democrat running for re-election in a sort of a red state, and he he doesn't want to be there because he doesn't want to have to vote on this. So Chuck Schumer, the majority leader of the Senate, has said we're gonna dispose of this very quickly. He says we should never use an impeachment to settle policy disagreements. Oh, he feels that way now, does he? Okay, I understand. But he says he's going to dispose of it very quickly, and there's not going to be what you would consider a trial. He'll motion to table it or something like that. Now, this is not sitting well with Republicans in the Senate. They want to have this trial. And so Ted Cruz and a great number of other Republicans came to the Senate gallery, stand before cameras. This is a long cut from Ted Cruz, but nobody explains better, what is going on here than Ted Cruz and the crisis that we face on the border and why we should have a trial over these articles of impeachment. Here is a very lengthy cut of Senator Ted Cruz.
We've just witnessed history being made. Only 22 times in our nation's history has the House of Representatives presented and delivered articles of impeachment to the Senate. Only twice in our nation's history has a cabinet member been impeached by the House. The stakes of this impeachment are not some technical violation of law, but rather an enormous and growing threat to the lives and safety of millions of Americans. Every year, under Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas, we have seen millions of illegal aliens crossing into this country. Alejandro Mayorkas actively aided and abetting the criminal invasion of this country by criminal drug cartels and illegal aliens, and the consequences have been day after day after day, migrants dying. 853 in the last year. The consequences have been day after day after day, little boys and little girls being brutalized by human traffickers. The consequences have been day after day after day, hundreds and even thousands of women being sexually assaulted by human traffickers. The consequences, which the House managers read out loud in the articles of impeachment, have been enriching the Mexican drug cartels to a level never before seen in history. In 2018, the drug cartels made roughly $500 million from human trafficking. In 2022, they made $13 billion. The single greatest friend the human traffickers have ever had has been Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas. Because under their open border policies, the drug cartels have seen their revenues rise 2,600%. Every week, we see another horrific crime committed by criminal illegal aliens that Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas continue to release. Laken Riley, beautiful 22-year-old woman in Georgia, a nursing student, just out for a jog. Like so many other women are out for a jog today, believing they live in a country where their safety will be protected, and it should have been. But Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas deliberately defied the law. They apprehended her killer when he came illegally into this country. He was in El Paso. Had Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas simply followed the law, they would have put him on a plane and flown him back to Venezuela, and Laken Riley would still be alive. But they didn't. They defied the law. They let him go. And he went to New York City, another sanctuary city, where he was apprehended again, this time for endangering the safety of a child. If New York City had simply followed the law, if they'd put him in jail, Laken Riley would still be alive. But again, New York City let him go, and this murderer came down to Georgia and beat Laken Riley to death with a brick. Jeremy Caceres, a 2-year-old little boy in Prince George's County, Maryland, just miles from where we are right now, murdered by an illegal alien Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas released. And just a couple of weeks ago, we saw another tragic case. We've discovered that Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden aren't simply allowing millions of illegal aliens in at our southern border. They're actually flying them in from their home countries. Over 320,000 last year, including one individual they flew from Haiti to Boston, Massachusetts. When he got here in Boston, Massachusetts, what did he do? Well, he was just arrested for violently raping a 15-year-old girl who's severely disabled. The consequences of this open border invasion are enormous. And interestingly enough, what you just saw is apparently terrifying. The men and women, the House managers who are here, and thank you for your service coming here, scare the living daylights out of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. Tomorrow, we're going to see Chuck Schumer throw out 200 years of history, ignore the Constitution. Why? Because he does not want these managers to present the evidence of the people dying because of their policies, not just that have died yesterday and the day before, but the people that will die tomorrow.
Powerful, powerful commentary by Ted Cruz that really outlines the depth of the problem. And yet, Chuck Schumer is going to sweep this under the carpet, sweep it under the rug. We're not going to have an actual trial. Democrats are going to squirm, and the Republicans are going to make as much noise as they possibly can. But I think that the Democrats will vote in lockstep to not go forward with an impeachment trial. And that means that the matter dies, it's tabled, and they are terrified to have this conversation in an election year, where many Americans have said immigration is the big issue that is driving them and informing their vote as they head to the polls this fall. Now, Secretary Mayorkas was actually appearing before a House committee earlier today. Mark Green, who we heard from earlier, is the chairman of that hearing, and wanted to know why it was that all of a sudden, after months and even years of saying that, no, we don't have a crisis on the southern border, Secretary Mayorkas is now saying that there is a crisis on the southern border.
Ever since I began my tenure.
Let me ask you this question. Just recently, your last trip here, you actually admitted that there was a crisis at the southwest border. What changed?
Mr. Chairman, nothing changed. I have recognized the enormous challenge that the southern border presents ever since I began my tenure, and actually well before that, then when I served as a deputy secretary.
Let me ask this question then. When you came to Congress and said there was no crisis at the southern border in your first few trips here, no crisis, there's no secure, the border secure, nothing changed between then and now you're saying it's a crisis?
Mr. Chairman, I have never minimized the challenge that the southern border presents. I didn't minimize it when I served as a federal prosecutor for 12 years from 1989 through 2001.
So he doesn't answer any questions, really. Look, this is maddening. This is maddening. But we'll watch to see very carefully what happens tomorrow in the United States Senate. 21 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. You know, there are no magic pills or spinal cream that can magically fix your hurting, aching back. Really, if you have pressure on your nerves, there's only a couple of options. One is surgery, or you could pursue the non-invasive spinal decompression offered at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. That's what I chose, and I can tell you it did me a whole lot of good. So before you go into the surgery option, you really should go by and talk to Dr. Kevin Mitchell and Dr. Ashley over at the Wellness Institute of Nashville to see what other options are available to it. Their state-of-the-art facilities and their high-tech equipment offers the latest non-surgical procedures. Getting better is important, so Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley are offering half-off spinal decompression treatments and their innovative new KT knee machine, which is sort of like spinal decompression for the knee. Listen, they also have a special if you're a new patient. $23 gets you an exam, a consultation, and your first treatment. What's not to love about that? I'm Brian Wilson, and I put my stamp of approval on the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Call them today. Set up your appointment, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Coming at you a little early, 5:26. We've got Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn joining the drive with Brian Wilson right here on Super Talk in just a couple of minutes. So giving you your top stories a little early. Right now, 83 degrees on Music Row. Latest traffic report and a weather forecast in 5 minutes. A New York judge has seated 6 jurors in former President Trump's hush money trial, slotting the first pieces into place before the official proceedings begin. But as Jonathan Carl notes, finding the 18 people necessary has become a bit of a challenge.
Ideally, in a criminal case, you'd want somebody who had absolutely no familiarity whatsoever with the defendant. I mean, there's nobody in America. How many people in the world don't know who Donald Trump is, and how many of those people don't have an opinion about Donald Trump? So it's a very high bar.
One juror was just dismissed after posts were found on social media from them discussing locking up Trump. And issues with this year's grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX and slowed production of the planes are costing one of the nation's biggest airlines hundreds of millions of dollars. Here's Alex Stone.
When Boeing 737 MAX 9s were grounded because of that door plug that flew off that Alaska Airlines MAX 9 in flight, the grounding cost airlines a lot of money. United saying it costs the airline about $200 million, a revelation coming in a new regulatory filing. And now to make matters worse, because of production slowdowns, United says Boeing has alerted the airline it will be receiving far fewer new 737 MAX aircraft this year than had been expected.
And right now in Tennessee, a bill is just one vote away from Governor Lee's desk that would require school districts to notify parents if their kids ask for action to affirm their gender identity, such as using a different name or pronoun. The New York Post reports more than 3.2 million U.S. public school students are covered by guidance that blocks parents from knowing whether their child identifies as a different gender in the classroom, and it could become a federal policy if President Biden's Title IX proposals are approved next month. That is the latest news. Weather, traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Resolved that Alejandro Nicolas Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security of the United States of America, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors.
That was Mark Green from the Tennessee 7th Congressional District delivering the articles of impeachment to the United States Senate earlier today. And will there be a trial? Doesn't seem likely. Let's check in with Senator Marsha Blackburn on the phone from the nation's capital to find out more about that. Senator, it sounds as if Chuck Schumer is going to do everything he can to stop there for being a trial because Democrats really don't want to have this discussion.
You're so right about that. They don't want to have the discussion, and they do not want the American people to know what the Biden administration and Mayorkas are guilty of. So I was really so grateful to Mark Green and the House managers for bringing over those impeachment articles, standing in the well of the Senate, delivering those, and elevating that discussion. Because Chuck Schumer has said he's going to file an amendment to dismiss these articles, which means that we will have a grand total of about 90 minutes of debate. During that time, we Republicans are going to offer points of order to instruct, and these are going to be points of order that we will have a minute or two to bring up to show what Mayorkas is guilty of, what he has done, what has happened to this country since he became the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Well, we have heard that if Schumer does this thing, where he just basically dismisses of them in very short order, and there is no full impeachment trial, that Republicans in the Senate are prepared to, well, slow walk just about everything that happens in the Senate, to grind the Senate to a halt. Now, that threat has been made. Will it be followed up on?
Oh, it's going to be followed up on. And after the impeachment articles were delivered this afternoon, I have already been on the floor and took my time to talk about why we should impeach Mayorkas. And what you will see is that you will see a grinding to the halt. Brian, it's important to note, this is not something that has ever been done. This would establish a new precedent. There have been 21 impeachments. 4 of the individuals either died or resigned, but the other 17, those impeachments went to trial in the Senate. So what Chuck Schumer is doing establishes a new precedent, and it is something that we are saying this is not right. Can you even imagine what the Democrats would have done? I mean, they would have gone nuts crazy if we had said we're going to just table, or we're just going to dismiss, or no, we're not having a trial with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, there's a different standard. You know, as I often say on the program, the only standards that Democrats have are double standards, and that seems to be at play here. So you will assure me that as this thing goes down in flames, which it probably will, because Democrats definitely don't want to have this conversation in an election year. John Tester does not want to have this especially doesn't want to have this conversation in an election year. That the Republicans are going to do everything they can to impede anything that the Democrats bring forward.
There is a group of conservatives in the Senate. We're called the Steering Committee, and our executive committee meets on Monday nights. And in that meeting last night, we discussed this and discussed the importance of being sure that we are able to have our say as we move forward. And I think you're going to see a very robust pushback on what Schumer is doing.
All right. There are other things at play right now over in the House. The Speaker Johnson's been talking about a total of 4 different sort of bills that have to do with support for, one's for Israel, one would be support for Ukraine, one would be support for Taiwan, and there's a 4th bill out there that has to do something, I think, maybe with even TikTok, which I know you care deeply about. But one way or the other, that they're breaking these up into 4, and he's gotten in a lot of trouble for offering that. But what will happen if some of these measures make their way to the Senate? I mean, there's some question about whether Ukraine aid can clear the House, but the Israel bill might likely go through. And I've heard that Democrats say, well, if we can't have them all, we don't want one. Do you believe they really will stand by that?
They did last night. Last night, Senator Marshall and I were on the floor. He had Israel funding that has the offsets, taking the 87,000 IRS agents, taking that money and funding Israel and what they need, which is $17.6 billion. That's money for the Iron Dome, for mortar resistance, for David Sling, for Arrow. And the Democrats objected to that. So we said, all right, let's do Israel funding, no offsets. That's been my bill, 3168. Let's just give Israel what they need. They objected to that. So, Brian, they have no intention of giving Israel what they need unless they get what they're wanting for Ukraine. And as we have said repeatedly, we have sent Ukraine $113 billion. They're asking for $66 billion more. It is important that we say to Ukraine, we have to know where this money is. There's 3 basic buckets of money. You've got humanitarian aid, government support, and military. People are really not arguing over the military expenditures. What they are questioning, and I'm one of them, The question is around what is going to happen with that humanitarian aid and the government support. Where is that money? Why do you need more? What have you done with the $113 billion we've already sent?
What happened to this idea that was being tossed around for a long time on the Hill that if you want money for Ukraine, then you have to give us something for the border?
And we continue to push that because we have all of the provisions in place for H.R. 2, which has been in the Senate now since last May. And I was in committee today talking about H.R. 2. I was in Judiciary Committee. We have never taken it up. But we had a hearing in Judiciary Committee today on solitary confinement. Well, let's take up H.R. 2 and let's move forward with this. Let's, as I told Chairman Durbin today, as we were arguing over this in committee, I said, look, if you don't like the bill, have a hearing on it and then amend it. But take the bill up. But here's the thing. They don't give a rip and flip about securing that border. An open border is their policy. They don't care about people that are affected by fentanyl or human trafficking or sex trafficking or gangs or crime in communities. They don't care. What they're looking for is new voters that are going to come in, and they're going to go to these big blue cities, and then they're going to try to count these people in apportionment, and they're going to try to find a way to let them vote.
I've been reading this story today. It's been posted in many different places that a Soros-linked NGO, a non-government organization, was distributing flyers down in Mexico saying you do not need documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote. You can vote if you simply swear you are eligible. And that they're basically telling people in Mexico who are coming to this country and are going to be allowed in by the Biden administration that they need to register to vote and claim that they are American citizens so that they can vote for Joe Biden. This is now that there's some people who say this may not be real, but I mean, there is truth to the fact that when you apply for a driver's license and you want to get registered to vote at the same time, all you have to do is say, I am an American citizen, and there's nothing that they can do to challenge that assertion.
Right. What we're trying to do is validate that also. We've seen that people have mentioned it to us. It is of tremendous concern, but we do know that these mayors in these big blue cities are trying to get people into their cities to backfill their population. That much we do know. And they want it so that their numbers are not as bad for the census and for reapportionment. So that we can substantiate. We're trying to figure out the other. We'll let you know if we figure it out.
Please, we would love for you to follow up on that. Yes, you have a measure that you are interested in trying to push forward that would answer what we saw yesterday on our TV screens of protesters that were blocking bridges and other thoroughfares around the country. And you think that those folks should be criminally prosecuted?
Yes, I do. And my legislation would establish a penalty. It would also allow for 5 years of imprisonment for people that are found guilty of blocking these public roadways. This is something that needs to happen. Tom Tillis and I filed this bill after all the protests last fall and the blocking of roadways. These anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine demonstrations that are taking place, and they're blocking airports, bridges, city streets. This is endangering the public, people that have medical emergencies, that are trying to get from one place to another to get to medical care. people that are trying to get to work, people that are trying to get to the airport. I think everyone saw the footage of people in Chicago that were just outraged, having to get out of cars and walk, dragging their luggage to get into the airport to make their flight.
Yeah, what a mess. Very quickly, with regards to Israel, do you think Israel will respond to the attack by Iran?
I think that Israel should do what they think is appropriate for Israel. These groups that are trying to Monday morning quarterback and micromanage Israel, can you even imagine what we would have thought had they done that to us?
So
after
you're
9/11.
So you're hoping that they you want to leave it up to them without offering an opinion?
Absolutely.
All right.
Israel needs to do what Israel should do to defend themselves and to defeat Hamas. And we need to support them in those efforts to protect themselves and defeat Hamas. Rid the face of the earth of Hamas.
We've got about 1 minute left. What was your thinking about the remarkable work done by U.S. military and Israeli Defense Forces in repelling that attack? I mean, apparently 99% of everything that Iran threw up got knocked down before it even got to Israel.
You know, Brian, I am so proud of our U.S. military and the work that they do. They are wonderful men and women, and the effort that they put into working with the IDF and working with Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow, and making certain that they were tracking and they got these ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. They got them out of the air. That is a good thing. We are hearing that from different reports that we may have 3 people that were killed in Jordan and then maybe a dozen that were injured. But the fact that they were able to limit the damage, I'm not so sure Iran was ready for that type of response.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us. We know we need to let you go so you can meet other obligations. Senator Marsha Blackburn calling in from the nation's capital. Now 45 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. And are we ready for this? Okay, here we go then.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for a late edition of McMurray's Wild, Wacky, Weird World of Sports. And he's promised it will be both wacky, weird, and wild. Here he is, a little late, so we can accommodate the senator. McMurray, ladies and gentlemen.
Better late than never, right?
Well, that's right.
We're here. And the sports news hasn't left us. Don't you worry.
That's good. Well, you got a lot of stuff to share with us. Hang on. Okay, what do you got?
Well, we're doing NBA and WNBA news here. So first off, in the NBA, the play-in tournament starts tonight. Now, we discussed the play-in. It's it's like a precursor to the playoffs. We discussed this a long time ago. I'll quickly explain. So there are 8 teams in each conference that make the playoffs, but the play-in allows the 9 and 10 seeds in each conference to have a chance to make the playoffs. So what happens in the play-in tournament is the 7 and 8 seeds play in a one single elimination game. The 7 and 8 seed play. Whoever wins that game gets the 7 seed. And the loser of that 7-8 game will play the winner of the 9-10 game.
Interesting.
So basically what this means is if you get the 7 or 8 at the end of the season, you only have to win 1 game to make the playoffs. You can lose 1 still, but you only have to win 1 to make the playoffs. The reason I kind of like this is because if you're the 9 or 10, you are forced to win 2 games in a row to make the playoffs.
Right.
Back to back. So that's kind of what this is. So today that begins. It'll end Friday with the real playoffs starting on Saturday. So today is the Western Conference portion of the play-in, where we will have the Lakers and the Pelicans. That is the 7 seed New Orleans Pelicans playing the 8 seed Los Angeles Lakers. And then you've got the Warriors. I believe they're the 10 seed playing the Sacramento Kings, the 9 seed. So that'll be a really fun game. I mean, it's plausible that we have LeBron James and Steph Curry both miss the NBA playoffs this year.
Wow.
That's very real. That is in contention here. So LeBron and Steph Curry trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. LeBron can lose tonight. He will have a chance to then play the winner of that 9-10 game, that Warriors-King game, and then the loser of that Warriors-Kings game tonight, their season is ended. I hope that makes sense. And then you got Heat 76ers tomorrow, Hawks Bulls tomorrow, a little bit lesser of great games. The West really is just deeper. The East is more top-heavy.
And this whole play-in tournament thing was done by the NBA just in an effort to kind of to pique interest, right? To gain more viewership for the playoffs. Or
yeah, exactly.
Trying to bring a little drama to it, right?
Exactly. Make this end of the season actually
exciting.
matter a little bit. So if that 11 seed is a game and a half back from the 10 seed, it's kind of exciting to watch the 11 seed's last game. And a few years ago, who cares about what the 11 seed in the Eastern Conference doing? Well, now it kind of matters. They could, all of a sudden be in the playoffs and
still be in it, right?
Exactly. Have a chance there. So
play your way in. Yeah.
It's kind of what they're doing with the mid-season tournament. They're trying to just garner as much attention through this 82-game season to try and make it seem like it matters more. And we didn't cover this, but the NBA officiating has improved dramatically this season. About 40 or 50 games in, Commissioner Adam Silver basically just said, we got to figure this out. The offensive output that the game's seeing right now is not okay. The game's changing before our eyes, and players are allowed too much leeway. Offensive players are allowed too much, advantage. And we have seen a tick down in scoring, in efficiency. The physicality of the game has come back. It's actually been drastic, the changes, in just a matter of weeks. The game has really changed and gotten back to what we saw, a decade, maybe a little over a decade ago. The physicality's gone up. So for players like, aforementioned LeBron James, this actually works. Maybe he's 39, 40 years old, but he's still stronger and bigger than these guys. Maybe a guy like Steph Curry, past the peak of his powers, only 195 pounds or whatever it is, maybe not the best when his game's running around all day. So there's some teams and some players that have benefited, and maybe others that have seen their games take a hit because of the officiating, which has actually been awesome for the game. So been really excited about that from the NBA perspective. We see the play-in game start tonight. The WNBA, we saw the draft on Monday. Caitlin Clark did go to the Indiana Fever, number one.
Surprise. No surprise there.
No surprise there. Yeah. And within hours after, all small through XXL jerseys sold out for Caitlin Clark. So they completely sold out within hours. So just more good movement for the WNBA and some exciting stuff. Their commissioner, I believe her name's Engelbert. Let me see here. Kathy Engelbert. She, spoke before the draft like any commissioner of any sport does, and she basically announced that they want to expand. This had been, kind of talked about. We can talk about, this could be another segment. I completely disagree with that decision for them as a league. I think this is a bad decision for them, but that's fine. They have 12 teams. They want to reach 16 teams by 2028. They've already announced that they want to add a 13th team starting next season in the Bay Area, but they want to have 2025 be where they add that 14th team. And they mentioned, 2026, they want to add that 14th team. And she named Philadelphia, Toronto, Portland, Oregon, Denver, a place in South Florida somewhere, and Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
As possible cities for a WNBA team. So
interesting.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
That'd be very fun. Get some basketball here. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, again, thank you for moving things around today and being very flexible. We really appreciate that, so we could get the senator in at her appointed time, and we had to get her out at her appointed time. But I appreciate you, Mac, doing that.
Of course.
Your newscast will come up in a few minutes. Right now, 51 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
6:01, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 81 degrees, partly sunny in Music City. Traffic weather forecast 5 minutes away. More than 2 months after the House voted to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, House impeachment managers transmitted the articles of impeachment against Mayorkas to the Senate this afternoon. Speaking at a press conference inside the Capitol following the handoff, Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz urged his Democratic colleagues to participate in these proceedings, saying the stakes were too high to do nothing.
The Senate has a clear obligation under the Constitution and 200 years of precedent. We need to hold a trial. We need to allow the managers to present the evidence, and then every one of us who is following the law should convict and remove Alejandro Mayorkas for aiding and abetting a criminal invasion of the United States of America.
The next step will occur tomorrow afternoon when Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says lawmakers will be sworn into a court of impeachment. Back here in Tennessee right now, a hearing on whether the Covenant Manifesto should be released to the public or not happening today. Channel 4's Stacey Cameron gives us specifics of what is happening in the courtroom.
This case boils down to 3 sets of documents that a judge will have to decide whether or not Metro government must turn over to the public. Now, those documents include 1, writings found by Metro police in the shooter's car and home, records from police investigative files, and police communications, including officer text messages and emails that relate to the shooter's writings and the investigations. And so all day lawyers have been arguing about whether there's any exception to the public records law that bars Metro government from turning those records over. And Metro PD says their investigation into the deadly shooting will remain open until July, so they shouldn't be forced to turn those records over because they're still looking into whether anyone was an accomplice or co-conspirator.
Covenant Church and schools say they want to keep the writings from the public because of diagrams and different things that could lead to possible copycat attackers. There's no evidence or witnesses in the hearing, just the attorneys making arguments, the judge asking questions. There will be no decision on what, if any, documents are released. Instead, just as the judge sticks with the timeline that she laid out last summer, we could get a written decision in the next 2 weeks. And sticking with crime here in Tennessee, police have released a picture of a vehicle that allegedly killed Tennessee State University football player Chazen Page over the weekend. The red Ford Edge was found last night in a backyard on Oakhurst Drive. Officers are continuing to pursue leads to identify the driver and ask that you call if you have any information. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Good evening, everyone. It is 8 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. You're arrived at the fourth hour of our big show on a very busy news day. This is Tuesday, April 16th, and we've got local news. We've got a ton of swamp news. We got all kinds of things happening that are keeping us occupied today. So let's see how much of it we can cover in the hour we have left before we hand it back over to Mark Levin, who will carry on after the 7 o'clock news. Listen, by the way, beautiful day today, wasn't it? I'm looking at my thermometer here in bucolic Watertown. Still 81 degrees.
Yep, 81's what I've got as well. But I will say the cloud cover has rolled in.
Yep, I know. And I think it changes, doesn't it? I haven't looked in a while.
Just to get some storms possible.
Yeah, they say keep an eye out, be weather aware. Let's see here. Let's see. Tomorrow, 77, but a 40% chance of rain. Thursday, we'll call it partly cloudy, 84. Friday, 35% chance of rain, and 70. So, we're going to, and they say some of these storms may be isolated but strong. That's the way I understand it.
So just keep an eye on the sky.
Yeah, let me bring you up to date on one other big local story. You've been hearing us talk about it in our traffic reports and in the news. There's an overpass on I-840. On the 840 loop or half loop, as in the eastbound lanes near Thompson Station. There was a train crew that was working in the area, and they were pulling some heavy equipment through an excavator, and the top of the excavator came in contact with the bottom of the bridge and did some serious damage. Now, you're hearing various reports. Maybe one lane will open. We're not sure. But the engineers have been out looking at it, and they say to fix the bridge, it's going to take a while, maybe as long as 3 months. So we're waiting to get more clarification on exactly how that's going to work. But, that part of the I-840 is shut down for now. And hopefully they can get some lanes open. But if they can't, it's going to be a major headache for about 3 months is what they're saying. So we're waiting for more clarification on that. In the meantime, if you can avoid that area, let's say you're coming into Nashville from, let's say, Memphis on I-40, and you want to take the half loop down and pick up I-65, you can't do it right now. Well, you can do it, but you're going to get diverted or perhaps stopped or backed up.
Yeah, I would probably say if you can't avoid that area, just don't go that way.
It'd be better to come on through town, even though that would seem not to make a lot of sense. Yeah. It's still going to be slow. And I bet you the southbound commute right now is not a pretty thing on I-65 out of Nashville. All right, so anyway, we're watching that one as well. Now, today there was a major hearing in your Supreme Court, and it may have something that will change the outcome of some, 350 different people who have been prosecuted for their involvement in the January 6th event at Capitol Hill. They've been charged with obstruction charges, and one person, a plaintiff by the name of Joseph Fisher, has been charged with obstructing an official proceeding. And he says, wait a minute, I don't think that this law applies to what was involved here. And so the matter has wended its way all the way up to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, and it was heard today. It would appear that the conservative majority of the court has real problems with the way the Department of Justice has used this law to prosecute January 6th defendants. And so today they had a hearing on that. And look, there was some very tough questioning. I got a little bit of it over here. Let me see. Fresh take on this coming right off the printer. I got to look for it here. Yeah, here it is. Gorsuch was apparently really good at going after these people, and so was Alito. Here it is. This is from the Washington Examiner. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch on Tuesday questioned the Biden administration's ranking Justice Department lawyer about the scope of a federal criminal law used against protesters during the January 6th riot, a charge for obstruction of an official proceeding. 2 of the 4 counts against former President Donald Trump in special counsel Jack Smith's election subversion case are related to the same question, which is whether the statute known as 1512C2 that makes a federal crime to corruptly obstruct an official proceeding applies to otherwise nonviolent protesters. Gorsuch, an appointee of Trump, asked a range of questions about whether a mostly peaceful protest would be covered under law. And it was pretty good. Would a sit-in that disrupts a trial or access to a federal courthouse qualify? Would a heckler at today's audience qualify, or a heckler at the State of the Union address? Would pulling a fire alarm before a vote qualify for 20 years in prison? Gorsuch acts without mentioning a congressman who did the same thing, a Democrat. And so that was a pretty good question. I think Alito got into it with the Solicitor General. A Solicitor General is the person who speaks on behalf of the Biden administration in Supreme Court matters. And so here we have the Justice Alito. This is about 3 minutes. It's good stuff. Really grilling the Solicitor General over whether or not this is a good application of the law. Now, remember, if the Supreme Court says it is not, it can really help about 350 people who've been charged with obstructing an official meeting of Congress. It could help Donald Trump in a couple of the charges that are leveled against him. So it's a very interesting case, and it seems like the conservative majority of the high court is not liking what the Justice Department has done in bringing these cases.
General, let me give you a specific example. So we've had a number of protests in the courtroom. Let's say that today 5 people get up, one after the other, and they shout either keep the January 6th insurrectionists in jail or free the January 6th patriots. And as a result of this, our police officers have to remove them forcibly from the courtroom. And let's say we have to it delays the proceeding for 5 minutes. So an advocate might lose his or her train of thought and not provide the best argument. So would that be a violation of 1512C2?
I think it would be difficult for the government to prove that.
Why?
At the outset, we don't think that 1512C2 picks up minimal, de minimis, minor interferences. We think that the term obstruct on its face connotes a meaningful interference with the proceeding.
Well, it doesn't say, I'm sorry, C2 does not refer just to obstruct. It says obstructs, influences, or impedes. Impedes is something less than obstructs. The plain meaning of impede in Webster's is to interfere with or get in the way of the progress of, to hold up. In the OED, it is to retard in progress or action by putting obstacles in the way. So it doesn't require obstruction. It requires the causing of delay.
And if this
so again, why wouldn't that fall within? Now, you say, well, we're not going to prosecute that. And indeed, for all the protests that have occurred in this court, the Justice Department has not charged any serious offenses, and I don't think any one of those protesters has been sentenced to even 1 day in prison.
And I think it's in a fundamentally different posture than if they had stormed into this courtroom, overrun the Supreme Court police, required the justices and other participants to flee for their safety, and done so with clear evidence of intent to obstruct.
Absolutely. What happened on January 6th was very, very serious, and I'm not equating this with that. But we need to find out what are the outer reaches of this statute under your interpretation. Let me give you another example. Yesterday, protesters blocked the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and disrupted traffic in San Francisco. What if something similar to that happened all around? All the bridges from Virginia were blocked, and members from Virginia who needed to appear at a hearing couldn't get there or were delayed in getting there. Would that be a violation of this provision?
It sounds to me like that wouldn't satisfy the proceeding element nor the nexus requirement.
Why would it not satisfy the proceeding? Let's say they want to get to the Capitol to vote.
Well, if we had clear evidence that the purpose of the protesters who had set up the blockage somewhere, some distance away from the court, was because they had a specific proceeding in mind, because you have to show that the natural and probable effect of the action is to obstruct. There has to be a relationship in time, causation, and logic.
There you have it, a pretty good a clip of what was going on there. The justices, the conservative justices of the high court, really seeming very skeptical of the argument being laid forth by the Department of Justice in the prosecution of these cases. So this is a big one. This has a lot of implications going down the path, both for Donald Trump and for all these January 6th defendants who are still prosecuting their cases. Some that are in jail could maybe have their cases overturned. So I mean, there's a lot at stake on this one, and I don't, you never want to be too certain about your how you feel these arguments go. Most people say that you can get a sense of it, but I've also seen cases where people say, well, the court seems skeptical, and then at the end of the day, the ruling comes out and it's not what was expected. You never know what gets said behind closed doors. You never know what kind of negotiations are going on behind the scenes. But if you take an early read, my thinking is the high court is probably in a 6-3 or a 5-4 way going to say that the Department of Justice misused this particular statute to bring those prosecutions. So we'll watch that one pretty closely. We probably won't have any kind of decision on that anytime soon. Now, there's a hush money trial for Donald Trump that's going on now in New York. They're in the process of doing this thing called jury selection. If you've ever, I've covered a lot of trials over the course of my life, especially when I was in smaller markets. And, you often win your case in jury selection. You pick the right people to be on the jury, and you can have a good outcome here. So far, it's moving a little faster than they thought it was going to. They thought it might take 2 weeks. I think we could have opening arguments in this trial maybe by Monday, because 7 of the 12 jurors, they need 12 jurors and 6 alternates, have been chosen. And in a moment, when we come back, I'm going to give you a readout on what we know about a certain number. We have 6 of them we know the backgrounds on. And I'll share them with you after the break. It's 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Many of you have lived in this area for a long time. You know about Eurofix, and you know that it's been here for some 24 years, the place to go for your European car repair needs. And we've got to watch them grow. I don't know about you, but I really love watching a hometown business take off. Well, the folks at Eurofix want you to know they're very proud to announce the 5th location for Eurofix. This one is in Mount Juliet, on Mount Juliet Road. If you know the area, it's directly across the street from the Dairy Queen, a very lovely facility. Eurofix can now serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now, of course, Mount Juliet. It's pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic who started in a barn in the backyard of his single-wide trailer grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. So call to make that appointment, 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Yeah, I'm going to do a deep dive on that right now because Trump trial gets 6. I think actually they got 7 before the day was over, but we know about 6 because I've got a late report here from CNBC. Trump gets 6 or maybe 7 seated in New York. The first jurors from the New York hush money trial of Donald Trump were seated Tuesday as Judge Juan Merchan said he expects opening statements to begin on Monday morning. Now, they need 6 more jurors and then another 6 alternates to be picked over the next few days, but it's going at a faster pace than was expected by many legal experts who said it could take up to 2 weeks. I'm a little surprised, quite frankly, at the pace, but let me tell you how I think they did a good job of winnowing out very early a lot of people. They basically said, how many of you sitting here before me now do not feel like you could be fair and impartial in a trial that relates to the 2016 election and the conduct of Donald Trump? And about 100 of them raised their hands. Said, not me. I want out of this place. You know, whether you really felt that way or not, if you didn't want to be there, there was an easy out just by raising your hand. And that's the way it goes. So anyway, they did go forward. Now, here is a story from the Washington Examiner that they said, here, meet the first 6 jurors sworn in for the hush money case. Now, let me tell you something. Good attorneys will tell you that in a criminal trial, and this is a criminal trial, that you often win the case during the jury selection process. And, you know, picking the right jurors really can make a difference. And so they hire experts to look at these names and to run background checks and to look at their social media postings. I mean, it is a science. And you know who used to be in this business? Phil McGraw, Dr. Phil, years ago, used to do this. He would go in and say, here's my judgment about those guys. And he would look at them and look at their body language and draw conclusions about the way they answered questions, etc., and make recommendations. He used to do that. Well, anyway, so they got to believe me, a war room going, the Trump people do, to try to find the best possible candidates that they can choose. So here are, and we don't have names, of course. They have identifying numbers. So juror B400 will serve as the foreperson. He lives in West Harlem, originally from Ireland, is married to a spouse currently in school, has no children. He reads news from the New York Times, the Daily Mail, some Fox News, and MSNBC. So they took him. He'll serve as the chairperson, the foreperson. Juror number 280 is a native New Yorker, has been an oncology nurse for 15 years. She is not married, has no children, but lives with a fiancé who works in the area of finance. She gets her news from the New York Times, CNN, Google, and has a Facebook account. She was asked about her views on Trump. She replied, I don't really have one. Especially in this courtroom, he'll be treated as anyone else could be treated, and no one is above the law. Juror number B381 is an Asian man who appeared to be in his early 30s. He is originally from Oregon and works as a corporate lawyer. He reads his news from the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and gets news from Google. Juror number 89 is a man who said he found Trump fascinating and mysterious. He walks into a room and he sets people off one way or another. I find that really interesting. This is one guy who can do it all. Wow, that's what I think. This is one guy who can do all of this. Wow, that's what I think. So I don't know. Found him fascinating and mysterious. B3374 is a young black woman who said she has friends with strong opinions about Trump, but she also said that she is not a political person. She said she appreciates the fact that Trump speaks his mind, and I'd rather that than someone whose office who you don't know what they're thinking. Notably, she said she wasn't even aware Trump was criminally charged until she was called for jury selection. So not someone who follows the news very closely. And then finally, juror number B297 is a woman who's been a Chelsea resident for a little over a year and a half, who works as a software engineer for the Walt Disney Corporation. Okay. And again, as I said, more than 100 people were released as soon as they said they could not be fair or impartial. So they got to have 6 more and then 6 alternates. In a trial like this, you always have alternates. So it is moving along at a pace faster than expected, and opening arguments could well begin on Monday. 6:30, time for the news now. Let me tell you about the folks over at United Structural Systems. You know, they're the great place to go if you have problems with your foundation, cracking bricks or doors or windows that are sticking. You know all the signs that you've got a problem with your foundation. Well, they can help with all of that. And they've been doing it since 1994 and have over 25,000 satisfied residential customers. But they also want you to think about waterproofing because we've had a lot of rain and you may see some signs around your house that something's not quite right. Standing water in the crawl space, wet basement walls, musty odors, or floor joists with wood rot, cracks in basement floors. How about hardwood floors that are cupping because of all the moisture underneath? These are signs your house is trying to tell you you need to call and have things investigated. Really, this can turn into a very serious thing. So you call the folks at USS. They'll come out. They'll give you an assessment. They're not going to try to push something on you don't need. They're just going to tell you, here's how you solve this problem. Here's what it takes. And if you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, online at usstn.com, and you can call them at 615-488-7855.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, No open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. I'm Brian Wilson. We're here with you for a few more minutes before we hand it over to Mark Levin after the news at 7 o'clock. So glad that you're with us on this Tuesday, April 16th. It's been a very, very hectic, busy news day. We've got, bridges that have been hit in our area on 840 that may cause real problems for traffic going forward for a while. We're waiting to get the final readout on how long that bridge might be, blocked from traffic. Basically, a train crew ran an excavator into the bottom of the bridge, and the damage is pretty significant. And
it looks pretty rough.
Yeah, the DOT, the Tennessee Department of Transportation, TDOT, has said that complete repairs may take 3 months, but there's also a story out there that says they might be able to get one lane open. This is in the Thompson Station area. At that point, it'd be eastbound lanes of 840. So anyway, traffic's going to be a mess over there for quite a while. It's being diverted, and you got to go around, and as you can imagine, it's knotted up like nobody's business. And we'll stay on that story, I'm sure. I'm sure that Dan Mandis and the morning crew will have a complete update in the morning of where things stand. Let's see what else. I guess we'll just squish a bunch of stories. Are you okay? We got so many things to cover. I just want to get a bunch of stuff in very quickly, and sometimes they don't go together. So what we do is we just squish them like that. It's my favorite way of doing news, the squish news, we call it. It's to get ready to squish. There was a hearing today about whether or not they're going to release the writings of the Covenant shooter. This thing has been on hold forever. I've seen some reports today that suggest that we may not get a final ruling from the judge, Judge Miles, until, late this year or maybe next year. I think this judge, I got to be honest with you, it feels like to me like this judge is way in over her head. It just feels that way to me. I could be wrong, but having not been in the courtroom, but I've listened to a little bit of what's going on there, and I don't know. To me, it feels like this has gone on too long, and that if you follow the strictures of the law, the big mistake was made was when the judge decided that the parents, the school, and the church could be interveners in the case. One way or the other, it is back to starting with more testimony today, and it doesn't seem as if a ruling on that question is imminent. Will be quite a while, it sounds like, before we get some kind of final statement from the judge. Story number 2. The fate of the Tennessee voucher bill hangs in the balance as negotiations hit a tipping point. From the Tennessean, will Governor Bill Lee's voucher proposal make it to a final vote? Its chances look increasingly grim, they write, after yet another day without a significant committee vote on the measure. Now, what I'm hearing about this is that there's a lot of negotiation going on behind the scenes. And I'm going to commit to you that by tomorrow I will have somebody who can give me some update on where this is and what's likely to happen. And I will make all the calls and run through my Rolodex. No, I don't really have a Rolodex. I have a phone. But I'll go through all my numbers and get some answers for you to see where this stands. But my sense of it is, yes, there are negotiations going on. They're just they're going on behind the scenes. It is my experience that in many cases, when you get down to the bottom, like tick-tock, time running out, things can happen. But the House version and the Senate version are very different. And we're still seeing how it's going to all be worked out. Story number 3. Hadn't had time to get this one today. Vanderbilt hosts the HHS Assistant Secretary for Health, Rachel Levine, to lead a seminar on transgender health and policy. The University of Vanderbilt University hosted Assistant Secretary of Health for the U.S. Department of Health, Admiral Rachel L. Levine, last week to headline a talk on transgender health and policy in Tennessee, the South, and the United States. It was part of the university's spring 2024 seminar series for the Center for Research on Inequality and Health, co-hosted by the Vanderbilt LGBTQ Plus Policy Lab and Vanderbilt LGBTQI Plus Task Force. Can they add some more initials to that? Levine, a man who identifies as a woman, combined her unique perspective as a pediatrician and high-ranking government official with her lived experience as a transgendered person. Notice they didn't say much about it before she got here. Number 4. Wow, that's a good one. That's a great squish. That's my favorite squish. If you want to go to the city of Cincinnati, and who doesn't want to spend some time in Cincinnati? The 3 new Southwest airline flights coming to Nashville International Airport this summer. Direct routes between Music City and Cincinnati, Ohio. Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Richmond, Virginia will start on June 4th, according to airport officials. The news follows other recent BNA route news to southern Connecticut's Tweed, New Haven Airport, as well as added service to Buffalo, New York, and Texas markets Dallas and Austin. Now, it's easy to get to Dallas and Austin, but they're going to fly. There are going to be more flights going. And this piques my interest, as I have never been there. How in the world have I never been to Canada? But I've never been to Canada. They're going to open up various Canadian destinations as well. So this is that's good. Cincinnati.
Go get you some Skyline chili.
I suppose.
If you're into that sort of thing.
Yep, Cincinnati. Okay. Next story. I forgot what the count is. Is it 5, 6? I can't remember. We're just screaming through them so fast I can hardly keep up. We know that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has threatened to oust the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. She filed a motion to vacate. She said she wasn't going to act on it anytime soon, but now comes word that a second Republican member of the House will join her as a co-sponsor. His name is Thomas Massey. He's from Kentucky, and he says that he is not pleased with the way things are going under this Speaker, Mike Johnson.
There's only one person right now who can stop us from going into what happened last fall, and that's Mike Johnson. He's cleaning the barn, that's obvious. He had 3 things to do. He wanted to do an omnibus that broke all the spending records. He wanted to do FISA without warrants, and I wants to do Ukraine. Those are the 3 things. There are people riding him like a horse here. They don't care when the horse collapses. I do, because it's going to throw our confidence into turmoil.
He says it's just a matter of time till somebody calls that motion. And, it only takes one person to call for a vacation of the chair to oust the speaker.
Because the motion is going to get called, okay? Does anybody doubt that? The motion will get called, and then he's going to lose more votes than Kevin McCarthy. And I have told him this in private, like weeks ago.
Massey says if it is called, he thinks that the motion to vacate the chair will indeed pass.
If it is called, there will be a lot of people who vote for it. We're steering everything toward what Chuck Schumer wants. There has not been a change. I mean, if the country likes Chuck Schumer, then they should like what Speaker Johnson's accomplished in the House.
There you go. That's Thomas Massey. We'll stay tuned. Will this get worked out or not? Will Biden be on the Ohio ballot for the presidential election? Legal counsel for Ohio's top... we forgot to squish. Excuse me. Okay. Legal counsel for Ohio's top election official, a Republican, sent a letter on Monday signaling that the Secretary of State's office can't accept a proposed workaround to certifying Joe Biden for the state's November general election ballot amid a conflict with the Democrat National Committee. See, it turns out that he won't actually have been confirmed as the party's nominee before the filing deadline in the state of Ohio. Now, I think this may also happen. I think it was in, I want to say Alabama, maybe Mississippi, one of the two. States that Biden wasn't going to win anyway, but Ohio, it's a closer thing. And so, I think the reason why they can't move things around and can't fix this is because they're not really sure Joe Biden's going to be the nominee when he gets to the convention. I don't know. Just my thought. Next story. The President of the United States has taken over 200 actions against U.S. oil. This from justthenews.com. Within a week of being in office, Biden issued additional moratoriums on new oil and gas leases on public lands or in offshore waters and imposed new regulations related to permitting and leasing practices which were tied up in the court for years. President Joe Biden and his administration have taken over 200 actions against U.S. oil and natural gas industry as energy prices have gone up, according to a new report. The analysis actions Biden took the first day in office, listing them in chronological order through March of this year. The first act, of course, was canceling the Keystone XL pipeline. Gee, I'd sort of forgotten about that. Issuing a moratorium on oil and natural gas leasing activities in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and revoking Trump administration executive orders that decreased regulation in order to expand domestic production. But as we all know, it's had an impact on the price of gas. When Trump was in office, we had more gas and oil than we knew what to do with. We were exporting it. Now, it seems that prices are skyrocketing yet again. Next story. An NPR editor who alleged left-wing bias at the network has been suspended. Remember, we told you the story about Yuri Berliner, a senior editor who worked at NPR for more than 20 years. He wrote an article, an essay, and it was published, and it suggested that the network was left-leaning, had left-leaning bias, and was hurting the independence and the objectivity of the organization's journalism. No kidding. He published this in the Free Press last week, arguing that those who listen to NPR or read its coverage online are getting the distilled worldview of a very small segment of the U.S. population. NPR top brass told Berliner he could not do that because he did not secure approval for outside work for other news outlets as required of journalists, and he's been suspended without pay for 5 days. They say this is your final warning. Your final warning. He says he's not going to fight it. He's just taking the penalty. Finally, we'll wrap on this. I love this story. Remember, I told you when we had the horrible thing happen with the Key Bridge in Baltimore, knocked out the bridge, and we had people who died. 3 of them have still not even been recovered. But here's the story of a guy who was on the bridge and actually survived. A construction worker who survived the Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore is alleging that co-workers were told not to evacuate as the Dolly cargo ship approached the bridge. One of two construction workers who survived the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse on March 26 is alleging that workers were told not to evacuate as the ship approached a support beam on the bridge. He apparently was, as I understand it, in a pickup truck taking a break, and the pickup truck went into the water. The only thing that saved his life was the fact that the pickup truck had old-style manual roll-down windows. And so once it went into the water, he was able to roll down the window and escape. Otherwise, he probably would have drowned. And he says that he didn't know how to swim, so he just clinged on to something that was floating by. And that's how he survived. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Busy bee. If you need heat or cold AC, and in this time of year, it seems like you still need a little bit of both, don't you? I mean, sometimes at night it gets just cool enough you just want to warm up the house just a touch. And then it's getting warm enough. Now we're in the 80s now, almost 90 degrees today. You need a little air conditioner. Well, if either side of your HVA system is not getting the job done, this is the real test, this time of year, a real test for the system. Call the folks that I would call, the folks over at Busy Bee, HVAC, and Plumbing. They will buzz over to your house and get you going. Now, the way you keep these things running is to make sure you have preventative maintenance, and that's what being a member of the Beehive Club is. You get, for as little as $99, you get 3 thorough maintenance services, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Remember, Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833. That's 775-7833, or online at busybeehvac.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.